Tractor Driver vs. Pirates. Preface. Imagine a touching picture of a tractor driver who peacefully is plowing in an endless field, somewhere in the N region. It's like the captain of a ship plowing mile after mile of fertile land on an antediluvian tractor, which starts only with the help of a tire iron and some kind of mother, did you imagine? Very good. Only this was the end of the whole idyll, as the suddenly opened time portal of displacement completely absorbed Pashka Samodruchko, with a 5-story mat and his iron horse. Chapter 1. Ad cogitandum et agenda homo natus est, man was born for thought and action. Exel moxel. Yoke in the drawbar. A man in a cotton sweatshirt shouted with all his might, seeing himself not in the field, but on board a wooden schooner. Moreover, it was clearly a pirate ship and, worst of all, these villains in colorful shirts and with swords were already trying to attack him from all sides, delivering sharp steel-slashing blows to the hull of its breadwinner. Let's all move out, bearded clowns. I'll pop out your Adam's apple, I'll shove my balls down your throats. He shouted and picked up a heavy tire iron from the floor and rushed into battle. Pashka Samodruchko has only been back from the army with the rank of corporal for 6 months, but not from ordinary troops, but from airborne assault. A 2-meter-tall fellow could easily bend a crowbar into an arc and punch through a brick wall with his pooed fists. By the way, for the last time he was even sent to the LIP guardhouse, he, in his farm naivety, argued about this act with his colleagues for a pack of cigarettes and still won it. But unfortunately, behind the wall he punched, the foreman of the unit Stepan Korn had sex, the saleswoman Ludotka, the wife of the deputy. After the bricks fell to the floor, a buxom girl without panties and a skirt, with a fright, started in a straight trajectory and kicked the door with her head, behind which there were soldiers peacefully standing in line for canapés and various cakes. Perhaps the noise could have been avoided if, in a panic attack, the partner himself, with his pants down, had not pulled out his service pistol and started shooting at the ceiling with screams. Battle alert! We have been attacked. Enemy troops are already in the city. After that, a general panic and confusion began. Well, since the military department was exemplary, then within an hour part of the personnel jumped over the fence in search of saboteurs, squeezing mostly young girls for foreign objects. Well, those who remained managed to heroically disarm and detain a couple of civilians, fat-faced officials who had just arrived with a sudden check from the capital. They were beaten, however, not for long, but strongly, after which they completely took the blame for the alleged sabotage on the territory of the combat unit, and even took on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. When they sorted it out a little later, they apologized of course and even changed new teeth at the state expense, but the culprit had to be found. Accordingly, Pashka was best suited for the role of scapegoat. During a month of being imprisoned by the garrison watch, the soldier managed to devour a 6-month supply of food in a warehouse, where he was assigned to serve his sentence as a loader, after which the fighter was returned back to the unit and breathed a sigh of relief. With his political training he was not all right due to the fact that he constantly fell asleep to the monotonous lulling speech of the lecturers, but with combat and physical training everything was fine. True, he did not like to run, rather everyone ran from him when the guy was furious. One day, the old-timers decided to play a joke, as it happens in the army, and set fire to a couple of matches on his feet, which they slipped between the toes of a sleeping soldier. Well, what can I say? The barracks, thank God, did not burn down, for 2 corporals, and most importantly the instigator sergeant he threw out of the window, probably trying to save them. He almost succeeded, since we do not take into account fractures of limbs and slight stuttering. And they had a demobilization not far off. Everything, it would be ridiculous if it were not true, and especially unscheduled exercises, where the amphibious assault battalion took an active part in capturing enemy territory in the dead of night. Everything would be fine, but either the stars did not meet so well on the shoulder straps, or the equipment failed, or the navigator of the aircraft was completely drunk. Only the landing was carried out with a violation of coordinates, and instead of land, the paratroopers began to land on a huge ship. Half of the Terminator fighters, of course, landed past the target, right into the sea, but the other half landed on the heads of unsuspecting observers. Ironically, it was on this vessel that the General Staff was located, along with some representatives of the supra-Commonwealth countries, including East Germany. After an endless night of drunkenness about the start of the exercise, some senior officers were cooling off on deck under a cool breeze. When the soldiers landed, they did not hesitate for a long time. It is strictly forbidden to think in the army. To capture a bridgehead means to capture, but on land or at sea, so it makes no difference. In short, in a couple of hours, everyone who resisted received a butt in the face, and those who raised their hands in bewilderment with shouts, "Hitler kaput!" also under the gut. The most exciting thing was the subsequent release of the captured ship, as this was also planned, but again in a different place and with a different vessel. But when the captain's mate on watch managed to give the SOS signal, the adjustments were made literally on the move. Everything that swam and skillfully shot, fortunately, blanks, shot and swam to capture. Yes, they don't swim, they walk. As a result, everyone got it, those who captured and those who were captured, and of course everyone who planned this outrage. Pashka, by the way, also distinguished himself. The guy unfortunately missed the deck, but fell straight on a passing shark. From such impudence, the poor fish tried to grab the impudent paratrooper with its teeth, but got tangled in the straps of the parachute, and when it got out, Corporal Samodruchko had no choice but to beat the poor animal with his fists. He simply forgot about the machine gun, and would he have helped him in salt water? Here I got distracted again, so, what am I talking about? Well, yes, about pirates. Pashka terribly loved and hated his tractor at the same time, depending on how he worked in the field in this case, when his breadwinner was scribbled by incomprehensible personalities, and even with cold weapons, he could not stand it in nature. At the very first blows of a heavy tire iron, a couple of the most zealous fighters against technological progress lost their senses, or even their lives, as they lay down and no longer fluttered. The former paratrooper absolutely did not know how to fence. Yes, he did not need it, waving a medium-sized crowbar, but the length was clearly longer than the pathetic strength. The giant twisted it like a fan. At the same time, the cut of the mat is so exclusive that the word writer Dahl himself could envy him. Assholes. Fools, unshaven macaques. Red-breasted leeches. I'll take you. I'll take you, there, here, back, and a couple more times. These were the most harmless words from his vocabulary. He found out about leeches by chance in the army latrine, when instead of toilet paper he got a battered book with several unused sheets. It was printed there that these cute larvae are wrapped in a transparent jelly-like cocoon, which is a package for their excrement, hoping that not many people will be willing to taste such a repulsive delicacy. Part of the enemy team that dodged the swings of this truly magical club began to jump overboard, and our hero would have won a victory if the insidious enemy had not used the nets. Yes, the usual fishing nets were dropped on his head, and while he was getting out of them, he missed a couple of very strong blows of the ship's oars on the head, which caused him to lose consciousness. What had not happened to him since the age of 15? When he passionately kissed his classmate on the lips, in a dark corner of the school office. Samodruchko woke up from a bucket of cold sea water on his mortal body, which, by the way, was very intricately tied with strong ropes with sea knots. "What are you godless creatures doing?" Spitting he asked, and from the kick of a pointed boot already grunted. "Shut up and answer my questions, you stupid head," he shouted menacingly with a bandage on his right eye and a bloody right hand. Judging by the way he winced, rubbing his elbow, it was clearly a fresh injury. "What's your name? What the hell did you fall on our head, and even on an incomprehensible unit? You bastard, you broke our deck with this, Pepelak, you should be hanged on the yard for this." The formidable captain continued to yell, continuing to kick his prisoner. "Yes, calm down, one-eyed, you'll break my ribs, and they are dear to me as a memory. I won't tell you anything, not because I'm very brave, but because I can't understand a damn thing myself. I am an ordinary tractor driver, I work the land." "Tractor, who? Why are you hanging macaroni on my ears, and making a hunchback?" interrupted this brute and commanded. "Hang this imbecile on the yardarm, so that others would not be surprised how to tarnish the pirate's honor. Pepperlats, overboard to the devil." The trio of sea robbers deftly dragged Pashka under a rope garrote and through a noose pulled up. "Hey!" Samodruchko shouted, waking up in his room and falling headfirst on the floor. "Your division. Yoke in the drawbar. A little undergarment is not stained with content." He groaned, wincing painfully from a bruised head. "Well, what a dream I had. What would it be for? Probably the rain," he concluded philosophically and began to get ready for work. The young man really had just been demobilized and got a job as a tractor driver at his native collective farm, 40 years without harvest. More precisely, what was left of it in the era of underdeveloped capitalism. The village of theirs, Dovka, was on the very outskirts of large settlements, and accordingly, without light, normal roads and one private store. Everything was sold there, from basic necessities, such as bread, milk and vodka, to all kinds of clothes. It was held by the former chairman, and now the merchant Samodruchko Aristarch Ivanovich. So he entrusted the tractor to his only nephew. All the rest of the property was safely sold, privatized into private hands, of course into his hands. This settlement was dying out, almost like mammoths. Those who didn't get drunk went to the big city, only the old and the small ones remained. Only 100 souls with a tail, and Pashka is a giant male reproducer. Tokmo brides in the village, too, were not of age from the word at all. It remained for the poor guy either to wait until the youngsters grow up, or to go to a neighboring village about 70 miles away, but there were also Janas there. As in the joke, a young teacher was thinking about marrying a school principal so that the salary would be more, or a tractor driver to get to work off-road. With these sad thoughts, the guy had breakfast and refueled the tractor with diesel fuel and drove out of the yard. After driving literally a couple of kilometers, he stared in bewilderment at a bald spot between the trees. There was something sparkling brightly and crackling loudly. Damn, maybe the transformer in the trees got stuck and a short circuit happened? The fire will burn down the whole village for us, the guy said thoughtfully to himself and, just in case, took a sledgehammer with a long handle, got out of the tractor. As if the fire didn't spread to the grass, it's better to get a shovel or a fire extinguisher. There was never one, he muttered and was about to go back. Suddenly the crackling intensified, as did the force of the discharges, and the fiery arrow arced around the guy, hit the caterpillar mechanism. It sparkled like a Christmas tree, and right before my eyes, he began to disappear. Where to? Exel moxel. Yoke in the drawbar. I won't be able to pay for it for the rest of my life. Pashka shouted and clung to the caterpillar with his free hand, trying to pull someone else's property out of the funnel of the portal that was tightening from behind. He woke up on a sandy beach, holding the same sledgehammer in his hands, and for some reason there was a large seashell in the other. Throwing it aside, the guy muttered discontentedly to someone who didn't understand. That's really a sucker exchange turned out, a shell for the tractor's place. Looking around, he saw the ocean ahead, and behind him tall palm trees with coconuts hanging on them. Pinching himself by the hand, the tractor driver grimaced in pain and said in a doomed voice, "Well, it's necessary, it's a dream in the hand, a fucking babaika. The yoke is in my drawbar. Where is my tractor? That's for complete happiness, I just don't have enough pirates here." Loud shouts and hooting made him turn around and retreat to the nearest bushes, as there appeared on the horizon. Chapter 2. Equam memento rebus in arduis serve mentem. Remember, try to keep your presence of mind in difficult circumstances. At first, the former paratrooper saw a completely naked girl with blonde hair and her hands tied in front. It was a truly delightful sight, especially the dark pubic down and the breasts darting from side to side. How do girls run in physical education? How do they not drift to the side? But from behind the picture was quite sad. About a dozen short natives, black as pitch, with some trinkets instead of clothes, but all armed with spears, bows or axes, almost overtook the unfortunate victim. I won't be a hero, there are a lot of them, it's better to sit in the bushes, you never know if she ran away from her husband, the guy mused, feeling excitement in his groin for some reason. Help me. They're killing. They're raping me. The stranger shouted in her native language, and then the instincts of a warrior defender already worked. Pashka flew out of the bushes like a cork from a bottle of champagne and literally carried 3 pursuers off the shore into the water. Strike, the guy thought, remembering his bowling trip when he went on leave. Then swinging a sledgehammer he struck 3 times and 3 lifeless bodies lay down side by side without any signs of life and claims. The dumbfounded Aborigines were stunned, for sure they had not seen such a giant on their land, and even twisting incomprehensible weapons and swearing in an incomprehensible language. Another trio tried to kick by the self-made spears, but you can't drink talent. He deftly dodged and hit 2 more times, literally driving the shorties into the wet sand like nails, and, tightly. The rest of Blackass, sorry Aborigines did not tempt fate. Especially when a sledgehammer flew into the chest of the oldest of them and stuck there with a nasty crack. Bularo, Deogana. You lads go anrimt. Chbasto Antshal, the survivors shouted and very quickly rushed to run. I hear from the goats. Don't stand there, you'll freeze. The defender shouted, picking up the captured weapons in an armful and slapped the girl on the ass. Immediately the fugitive came to her senses and gave such a slap in the face that poor Pashka's teeth already clicked. Not a fig to myself, is that instead of thank you? He pouted resentfully and silently walked towards the trees. Wait, don't be offended, it's my reflex. There's nothing to spread your hands, the more we don't know each other yet. The girl stammered, trying to her feminine charms from above, then from below. Listen, stop and untie me, or better yet, give me your shirt. Can't you see I'm completely naked? The girl commanded and stopped abruptly. Well, damn, you're like a Foreman Steppenkorn, neither those hello, nor those goodbye, but immediately commands and orders. The guy answered and cut the ropes with a bone axe, and then took off and held out the upper part of the clothes, blushing. Only I won't give up my pants and underpants, no matter how you ask. Paint the fence. Ha 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 ha. You're funny and you're Foreman too. That's it. Have you got a hard on me? Are you shy? I bet you're not married. Even more, you're still a virgin. That's hilarious. The half-dressed girl was laughing merrily, as if they were not on a wild island among savages, but somewhere in the resorts of Egypt or Turkey. It's all good to laugh, you fool, because those who ran away will surely be with help and then we will be full of Kurdic. They may also regret you for their pleasures, but they will certainly let me go under the knife for the killed tribesmen. By the way, I remembered a joke here by chance. One day, after an unsuccessful joke at a ball, Lieutenant Rihevsky approached the omniscient Cornet. Cornet, tell me some more interesting story. Toy could then tell it to the ladies. Just be nice. Very well, Lieutenant. Do you know how ostriches are caught in Africa? No. The natives shave their heads bald and bury themselves in the sand up to their ears. The ostrich thinks that the head is an egg and sits on it. That's when they grab him. The lieutenant thanked the cornet and immediately decided to tell this story to the officers who were in the barracks. Gentlemen, do you know how ostriches are caught in Africa? They shave their heads bald, bury themselves in the sand up to their ears, and when an ostrich passes by, they grab him by the balls. Wait, Lieutenant. Why shave your head? Well, there's nothing you can do about it. Africa, gentlemen, Africa. You're a fool, and your jokes are stupid. It's immediately obvious that you don't have a girlfriend. They walked on in silence, the girl in front. After some time, when Pashka was already tired of staring at the slightly Ed with a shirt, and he was already thinking about whether to take advantage of the situation and finally become a man in the literal sense, the girl stopped abruptly and said in a slightly apologetic voice, "Thanks for saving me, man. Sorry for hitting and laughing. Yes, I have it nervous, you would know what I had to go through. Now let's go further away and I'll tell you, just let's stop for a minute. We've been wandering through the wilds for an hour, we probably broke away from the scoundrels. I need to get into the bushes, I almost peed myself out of fear, and now I can't stand it." The stranger said in a pleading voice and slipped behind the nearest tree. A couple of seconds later, a murmur was heard from there. "Oh, damn, there are a lot of spiders and snakes here." She squeaked and flew out from behind a tree right at the guy, hitting him painfully in his trained chest. He held her shoulders, looking into slightly frightened green eyes, and then kissed the fugitive right on the lips. The girl at first twitched nervously, went limp, but then she grabbed the guy by the head with her hands and literally sucked his tongue into herself. Natural instinct told the guy better than ever what to do in such exotic conditions. Hands gently kneaded the girl's breasts and already moistened crotch. The tongue fluttered like a butterfly in the partner's mouth. When she grabbed his groin with her hand, he no longer even remembered how he turned out to be completely naked and between the widespread legs of the charmer. This dance of love lasted forever. The unity of the male and female bodies was perfect, despite the very impressive size of his phallus. The girl's cave adapted very quickly and abundantly emitted love juice. When the guy was already on the way, the partner seemed to catch this moment, whispered in his ear, painfully scratching his back with her claws. "Finish inside me, honey, today you can. Today you can do anything." The couple spent the second visit literally in a couple of minutes. This time the girl herself sat on the partner, pushing his priap into her feminine nature. The jump of a sexy rider, her breasts fluttering before her eyes and the velvety skin of her ass literally eclipsed the man's mind. Clinging to her breast with his lips, he, like a baby, began to suck her in the ghostly hope of milking out at least a drop of milk. "Be gentle, the catechumenist, I still have no milk." "Fool, calm down, I'd rather turn around to you with a booty." Continuing the jump, the girl shook in an orgasmic fit and fell on his feet, simultaneously feeling her insides filled with hot male moisture. For the third time, the inexperienced guy in such pleasures was no longer enough. He just lay on his back blissfully smiling and stroking the girl's hair with his palm. But apparently the more experienced girl did not want to give up and she wanted intimacy more and more. Having descended into the groin area, the minx began to do such sophisticated oral caresses that the male organ rose again. "Take me from behind, please, I love it the most." "Just not in the ass, I'm not letting anyone in there." Just in case, this devil clarified, getting into the dog pose. "Once a woman asks, you need to do it, otherwise she will do it herself," the guy remarked philosophically again, penetrating the beautiful stranger for the third time. "What's your name, my lustful kitty?" the partner asked when they reached mutual satisfaction for the third time and just lay in the grass staring at the crowns of the trees. "I'm Diana, or you can just call her Dinah, like my parents." At these words, her voice trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes. Swallowing them, the fugitive tightly clenched her fists and began to tell. "Can you imagine, I got to your village by chance. I was asked to hand over a package of documents for your former chairman, Aristarch Ivanovich Samodruchko. As soon as I walked away from the taxi for a couple of meters, I saw a sparkle behind the fence and the devil pulled me to see what was going on there. The taxi driver also followed me, a jerk. He stared at my legs all the way and poisoned vulgar jokes. In short, I was pulled into some kind of funnel, and I came to myself already in the jungle. The worst thing is that together with this pervert, he almost immediately tried to rape me. He tore all his clothes, but I kicked him in the balls and ran like Dad taught me. Then I wandered for a long time, shouted, called for help, probably suffered from thirst for half a day, drank from a puddle and fortunately stumbled upon a village. I thought there was finally help. What kind of phone? My fiancé is waiting for me at home, and these monsters of a taxi driver are stringing a live one on a spit. I immediately lost consciousness from what I saw and came to myself already in some kind of bamboo hut without clothes, and with traces of rape. These bastards, whatever they did to me, didn't leave a living place, the goats. I think they would have eaten it anyway. I've seen their wives, monkeys are monkeys. These females still stuffed bananas into me, I even felt it in unconsciousness. In short, I ran away at night wherever my eyes look, washed in the stream as best I could with my hands tied, I thought to gnaw the ropes. They found me somehow. Then you know everything. With these words, the girl sobbed in a voice, as if experiencing all those torments again. Calm down, honey, I won't let anyone offend you, and we will definitely get out of here. I promise, the word of a paratrooper. Aristarch Ivanovich, by the way, is my uncle. He was my father instead of my father. My parents died. By the way, do you know what my nickname was in the army? Mantis shrimp. By the way, she has claws similar to hammers, which are not only extremely sharp, but also have a great destructive force comparable to a shot from a gun. In a second, she is able to hit the enemy 500 times with a force of 150 kilograms. With its own body weight of only 100 grams. Can you imagine what I can do with my sledgehammer and these fists? The guy narrated with a satisfied smile, remembering in time another page of the toilet book about different creatures. Okay, Shrimp Samodruchko, let's look for shelter for the night. Otherwise there are a lot of different animals here at night in addition to savages. They will devour, they won't choke, and I have other views on you. I hope you have on me too. You won't jerk off anymore, I promise you that. Chapter 3. Ad impossibilia nemo tenita. You can't force yourself to do the impossible. The couple in love was awakened by the noise of Sodom and Gomorrah, more precisely moaning women and plump men. The sounds were heard right above my head. And it seemed that there was somehow a guest brothel with nymphomaniacs and Caligula hidden there. When the cocoon jumped on its foot, threw several trophy spears into the dense vegetation and the hammer of fidelity, a bird of incredible beauty with a tail in the form of a lyre fell just below their feet. Awesome and don't get up. Wow, is that a mutated parrot that imitates sound so well? He asked, kicking the stunned, but fluttering feathered foot. Don't touch the bird. I feel sorry for her. You knocked it down with your sledgehammer, you monster. Put her back in her place. Diana immediately turned on her internal green piece and stamped her foot. In a shirt thrown over her naked body, she looked comically erotic. The man smiled, feeling a renewed desire, but restrained himself and answered. Hey, beauty, what are we going to eat? I need strength to get out of here, and so do you. Well, cat, please, let go of the bird. She's so beautiful, and the imitator is very plausible. I don't know where she's heard enough of this, but I'm already all wet, look. The girl pulled the man's palm to her crotch and the guy realized that resistance was useless, and when the seductress knelt down and began to please him, he realized to his enlightenment that a woman standing in such a position would win any man, of course, if he was not a faggot. After a couple of minutes, swallowing the seminal fluid accumulated in the loins, the cheat smiled mischievously and arched like a cat purred. Well, I've already had breakfast, and you need to shoot something else, just not so beautiful. Agreed? After which she jumped into his arms and, waving her shirt, whispered. It seems to me that I really fell in love with you. Fortunately, on the way they came across a small herd of wild boars. The guy did not hesitate and wondered how adorable these mammals were in the eyes of the girl, but threw 2 spears and a small hatchet at them at once. Something of them clearly hit Piggy, as it screamed plaintively, falling on its side. Running up to the prey, the guy saved the animal from torment with one blow of a sledgehammer, and after a couple of minutes the smells of fried meat pleasantly pleased the nostrils of both companions. You're a good boy, Pashka, you lit a fire quickly, you carry a lighter with you, but I only had a mobile phone in the pocket of my dress, and a woman's gasket. I forgot my purse in the car, Dina said, greedily tearing off pieces of well-fried pork with her teeth. That's right, although the truth is, besides the lighter, I also had condoms and this sledgehammer. We are very lucky that we are not Muslims or Jews, otherwise we would have to regret this pig. They don't eat this. Faith does not allow. Blissfully rolling his eyes, the guy said, feeling a pleasant heaviness in his stomach. The leftovers had to be wrapped in some wild burdocks and stuffed into the removed trousers along the legs. Therefore, the couple wandered through the jungle almost naked. The man was wearing only family underpants with shoes, and the woman was wearing his colorful shirt. Listen, where are we going? It seems to me that we are lost, the girl said wearily, sitting down on a fallen tree. Don't worry, little girl, the main thing is that we escaped from the cannibals. It is important for us to go to the sea or most likely to the ocean. By the way, do you have any idea where we have gone and why? Yes, from where? I saw the water when I ran away from these savages, and I don't know why we got into such a mess. It seems that I read in one magazine that up to 500,000 people a year disappear in our country. Note, for unknown reasons, it seems to me that these are chaotically emerging portals of people and they are dragging someone where. Well, yes, an interesting version. We were lucky that we didn't end up in the desert or in the Arctic. We would have died there for sure in a day. Look ahead, something is turning blue and the smell of salt water is felt. Exactly, Pashka, there's an ocean, let's run. Hooray! Finally, I will bathe in a human way. When the couple jumped out to the shore, they immediately froze near a steep cliff. The travelers were among the rocks in a wide lagoon, in the middle of which stood a majestic three-masted ship. Cool, what a beauty, look, maybe it's the new Russians having fun here? The companion asked admiringly, pointing with a manicured finger into the distance. Calm down, magpie, look at the flag, over there at the very top. If these are our countrymen, then most likely very old, or rather ancient. The girl even staggered back, looking closely. The flag was black with a skull in the middle and two crossed sabers at the bottom. Pirates, damn, real pirates, so we are not in the future, but most likely in the past. That's what to do now. Don't be afraid, little one, we need to look around. Our foreman said, the eyes are afraid, but the pennies should not fall. Here I will capture the tongue and interrogate with partiality, and then it will be seen. Maybe we'll ask for it ourselves in the team. He did not have time to finish, as they saw that a boat with a bunch of sailors and several prisoners had been lowered from the ship. Their hands were tied behind their backs, and each wore a black bag on his head. Only when the boat landed on the shore, and the whole horde got ashore, our heroes saw that 3 men and 2 women were captured. There were about a dozen bandits themselves. One part dragged the bound men to the trees and began to beat them, shouting something. Dime donde escondiste el cofre del tesoro? Te freiremos los talons ahora. Spanish, where did you hide the treasure chest? We're going to fry your heels. The rest of the Bashibuzuki, according to the old tradition of all the villains, having cut the ropes and torn their clothes, began to rape women. Please help them, you have no idea how humiliating and disgusting it is. Dina whispered in the guy's ear and even pushed him in the shoulder. Do you see me wearing a bulletproof vest or a machine gun? How can I save them, against 13 thugs, and even with firearms? Let it be gunpowder, but they will definitely blow my head off from 50 meters away. These are not pathetic ragamuffins with spears caught by surprise. You either have to wait for the night, or get closer, and there is not a single bush on the road, everything is like on a bare ass. The guy replied in annoyance and hit the ground hard with his fist. So that we will continue to watch these poor people being tortured and raped. Pashulia, you're a paratrooper, come up with something. To cram in the uninspired again? Think about yourself better, you fool. There are no Batman in the landing with different abilities and gadgets. Their strategy is important, tactics and weapons fail-safe. If I were an Indonesian octopus, Thormoctopus mimicus, that changes shape, behavior and color for various objects and animals, then I would definitely help, and so. Oh ho ho, here the men went, only for mating and are able to. Okay, only if I succeed, you will fulfill any wish. I have an idea, just sit here and keep your head down. With these words, the man disappeared between the trees, holding a bone axe with a spear in one hand, and a reliable sledgehammer in the other. Crumpled trousers with provisions, a bone knife and a bow with 3 arrows were left lying near the girl. Peering into what was happening, the girl even squeezed her eyes shut, as the pirates began to build a fire right on the shore near the boat and were already dragging desperately resisting men. Then they began to shove them in turn with their heels right into the fire. Pirates also raped women in different ways in different places, constantly changing places. The poor girls were shouting something in an incomprehensible language, bastardos, dejadnos en paz. Somos de sangre noble. Todos serán colgados por esto. Spanish scum, leave us alone. We are of noble blood. You will all be hanged for this, but it was impossible to make out what exactly the words were from a distance. All this idyll was broken by the desperate cry of one of the pirates, in whose back the axe of the savages was stuck. The bandits started up and started firing at the bushes from where this primitive weapon flew out. The powder charges of ancient guns shook the air and filled the lagoon with smoke, but apparently they did not hit anyone, and when a spear flew out from the other side, piercing the stomach of another Barmalay, a real panic began. A stir began on the deck of the ship, a couple of volleys of cannons were heard from the sides of the ship. Apparently, there were spyglasses on the schooner, as the cannonballs swept away towards the potential enemy with a nasty whistle and smashed several trees to pieces. Feeling the fire support, the pirates drew their sabers from their scabbards and rushed at the invisible enemy. At the same time, a couple of sea robbers remained on the shore, bandaging the wounds of their insensitive comrades and not paying attention to the prisoners. Diana stared with all her eyes, but did not immediately notice how a huge carcass smeared with mud and wrapped with leaves around its waist, like a goblin, emerged from the jungle and jumped at the enemies. Seeing this forest demon up close, both bandits froze with their eyes wide open and a mute cry, forgetting about their muskets. When they finally came to their senses, it was too late. A sledgehammer scattered them like tennis balls in different directions. Shots rang out again on the pirate ship and a couple of balls hit the boat, near which their companions were. Pieces of wood and human bodies flew in different directions. Tractor driver Pashka was incredibly lucky, since this shrapnel did not hit him, but the captured men whom he tried to pull out from under fire. Realizing that they were finished, the guy rushed to the women, who, instead of running under the trees, froze like mannequins, and even with their mouths open. "What are you frozen for, chickens? Run after me, holy shit!" He shouted and literally threw both captives on his shoulders, carried them into the jungle. Further events spun as if in a color kaleidoscope. 3 more boats, completely packed with pirates, were lowered from the ship. Diana watched in horror as at least 50 people landed on the shore with loud shouts and hooting. With a few shots, they finished off their seriously wounded comrades and a slightly moving prisoner, and then they ran in a wide arc after the fugitives. When the first 10 invaders approached the bushes, arrows and spears began to fly out from there. A few people fell, and the rest began firing from everything they had. One of them, a tall man with a patch over his right eye, shouted, "Matalos a todos! Solo hay nativos pateticos! Spanish! Kill everyone! There are only pitiful natives there." After which the pirates drew their sabers and rushed into hand-to-hand combat. They were certainly excellent fighters, since boarding battles when capturing merchant ships required certain combat training and endurance. But the only thing they did not take into account was the number of the wild tribe and its belligerents. The stunted aborigines, although they fought with the help of antediluvian weapons, but very skillfully. Soon the remnants of the unfinished robbers began to retreat, dragging the wounded in their arms. Only half of them reached the boats, and only thanks to the fact that the schooner began firing shrapnel balls again. Otherwise, the cannibals would have had a lot more fluttering hearts at today's dinner, a favorite delicacy of the cannibal warrior. My God, where has Pashenka gone? Was he really dead? That's a fool, what I'm constantly meddling with. I put such a guy under bullets or worse, under native arrows. Crying in the palm of her hand, the girl wailed, not even suspecting how close she was to the truth. Chapter 4. Aliena viscia in oculis habemus, a tergo nostra sunt. Other people's vices are in front of us, and their own behind our backs. The beautiful stranger kissed Pavel on the lips, and then touched his palm, as if saying goodbye. The girl said softly, "Te amo Paul. Vuelve pronto." Spanish, "I love you Pavel." Samodruchko was dressed in a luxurious doublet of the ship's captain, a felt hat was on his head, and a sword decorated with precious stones was on his belt. Behind him, a huge ship was rocking on the waves, and the whole crew was standing on the deck shouting in greeting. "Viva el Capitan, que viva felices para siempre, encontraremos estos tesoro." Spanish, "Hurrah for the captain." Advice, "Yes, love. We will find these treasures." Pavel clearly felt his face being stroked by gentle hands, and someone was clearly twisting his male pride with his fingers. He heard a pleasant female voice close to his ear, "Chico, tienes un dispositivo maravilloso y si salimos de aquí definitivamente te convertirás en mío." Spanish, "Guy, you have a wonderful device, and if we get out of here, then you will definitely become mine. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was a young beautiful girl wiping her body with a damp cloth. The girl was completely naked, as was the friend sitting behind him, judging by her age, clearly older and somewhat similar to the younger one. She just grunted and glared with displeasure, whispering like a snake. Armel, FRN. Stone Princess, Hija. Note basta con q mataron a tu padre atos hermanos y numbers privaron de nuestra honor. ACIQ todavía quieres casarte con este extranjero obviamente noble? Spanish Armel. Is it not enough for you that your father and brothers were killed, and we were deprived of honor? So you still want to marry this ignoble foreigner? To which the girl rudely replied. Valley, Nebraska, FRN. Strong, mamate ceramija qte calas. Few por su gracia q contratamos est barco en busca de estúpidos tesoros. Donde en contrast esta desafortunada tarjeta? Además, pudes recordas el romance con Alejandro, seguramente estas con todas las payasadas. Estoy convencido de que nuestro gerente ha configurado especialmente todo esto y ahora está contenta nuestro dinero. Y tenemos todos y varios y en todos los lugares. Valentine, mom, better be quiet. It's because of you that we hired this ship in search of stupid treasures. Where did you find this ill-fated map? Besides, should I remind you about the affair with Alejandro? Surely this is all his tricks. I am convinced that our manager has arranged all this on purpose and is now counting our money, and everyone has us, no matter who is lazy in all places. I understand that we are in captivity, and you have a scandal in a noble family. Asked, getting to his feet and looking around Pashka. They were placed in a bamboo hut right after a dozen drugging savages got into it. Well, meat is better stored alive. Exel moxel. Yolk in the drawbar. So these cannibals saved us for a side dish? Damn bad luck, it would be better to get to the pirates, and now they will probably eat you for lunch, and me instead of dessert, he said dejectedly, looking at the uncomprehending women. What is mine yours do not understand? It's understandable, I could teach you a couple of swear words when they string us on a spit, but I think I won't have time, but, fuck, you in front of the death, it may very well be. What are you hatching for? Was I risking my skin for nothing? With these words, the guy roughly grabbed the girl by the head and pressed her to his groin, beckoning the other with his finger. The woman shuddered, as if from a slap in the face, but obediently knelt down and began to approach this terrible giant, who killed a lot of people in front of her eyes. He continued to mumble some incomprehensible phrases. I'm here, young ladies, I'll tell you a funny joke on occasion. The Aborigines caught an Englishman, a Frenchman and a Russian and gave them a task, to write a letter in 5 minutes, fuck a native woman and tie their shoelaces. The Englishman sat down to write a letter. Writes. They ate him. The Frenchman started having fun with a woman. Also devoured. The Russian put the woman on knees, wrote a letter on her back, and she was tying his shoelaces at that time. He managed it in 5 minutes. The natives ask, how did you manage to do it so quickly? Bullshit, your working hours are still inefficiently distributed. If you put a saw in my ass, I would also cut wood for you. Ha 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 ha, is it really funny? Come on, little one, don't shirk, take it deeper, it seems that you have French kisses invented? When the guy was already approaching the climax from such sweet caresses, his ear caught a cry from outside and the sound of a falling body, or rather several bodies. The sloping walls of the prison deviated and into the opening burst, Fury, more precisely Dina, but in the mud and some branches. In her thin hands were a bow and a knife, and her eyes sparkled like an angry cat whose cat turned out to be impotent. What are you flea-bitten fuckers doing here with my fiancé? Are you attracted to sweet things? I didn't have time to part with you for a couple of hours, and you have these prostitutes in your mouth. A male, a beast, a womanizer. Hush, honey, not so loud, we'll get out, I'll explain everything, the guy replied, backing up to the wall and realizing that the sharp mouth of a woman who was cheated on in front of her eyes is a formidable weapon. I wonder how this can be explained at all. You clapcloths quickly collected their belongings and on all four sides, until she killed. This is my man. Is that clear? Wait a minute, where will they go? We need to stick together, maybe they can tell us how to get out of here. Although I don't understand what they are mumbling about in imported language. Ha 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 he he he. Hilariously, I'm saving you here. For the first time in my life I began to shoot with a bow, and the main thing is that I even got caught, and you're baking about these wet ties. I'll kill you. With these words, the girl jumped on the guy, but he was ready and grabbed her hand with a weapon, hugged her tightly and kissed her on the lips. Then they lay down on a straw bed and, under the bewildered gaze of both Spanish women, began to make love. How their exclamations were not heard by the rest of the natives, God only knows. Most likely they were all asleep after a hearty lunch consisting of a dozen freshly baked pirates and moonshine from local fruits. When at last the couple was sated, and the man, as usual, filled the girl's insides with his hot moisture, they got to their feet. Today it was just impossible to shoot at me. Well, maybe it will do. That's enough for you free striptease, madam and mademoiselle. So be it, I'm outgoing. Until we get out to civilization, maybe I'll let you use this Casanova. Any man dreams about a harem, and then the first acquaintance with his belongings took place. In short, we quietly go outside and get out of this hotbed of unsanitary conditions one by one, Diana whispered and pushed the Spaniards out of the hut with a light slap. You're just a smart girl, not only were you not afraid, but you yourself poked into the cannibals to save me. Thank you, my love. Pashka said when they finally moved away to a safe distance, and there was a stream on the way. Come on, whatever, you saved me too, and it was my fault that you ended up here, and these fools, so be it, let them stay with us for now. But just look at yourself, without my permission to them no, or else with a blunt knife and at the root. Besides, if I become pregnant, you'll get married and at the same time change your last name to mine, a slow walker. Do you understand the fool? Yes, I understand, how not to understand. Listen, I just now remembered you just reminded me of a slow walker. It's almost impossible to kill her. These creatures can withstand extreme temperature conditions from 272 to 150 C, a pressure of up to 40,000 kilopascals, as well as various high radiation. In addition, they can be without water and food for more than 30 years. Can you imagine? Fucked up, completely from an excess of spermotoxicosis? He called me some kind of microbe. Did you study to be a biologist, with such deep knowledge? As you know, you can live without food for 30 years, but I want to eat like hell. By the way, the same boar I hid here nearby under some kind of iron horseradish. When a friend pointed with her hand at an object laid by fallen trees. Pashka even grabbed his heart, recognizing the much-loved bulldozer in the object Ed with branches. My God, thank you for such a gift, this is my faithful, fighting horse. As long as the fuel does not leak out and there is no special damage, I have one plan that someone will not like very much. It's not good to drive a paratrooper through the bushes, we don't like it, oh, how we don't like it. Chapter 5. Age, quod aegis, et respis finum, do it, and look at the end, Jupiter. As a tip to be attentive to your business and take care of the result. Well, how do you like these French mandavos? Dina asked, falling on the man's chest, after a very long jump on his phallus and mutual orgasm. The prisoners from the schooner at this time were eating in both cheeks the supplies that they were given along with their trousers. At the same time, they were quietly whispering about something, looking askance at the incomprehensible mechanism, sitting near the stream. A couple of poppadents chose a large boulder warm from the sun's rays right behind the tractor. In addition, they were lucky to find a shallow cave in a rocky ridge, densely overgrown with lianas with a stream flowing in the depths. Well, Dean, are you at it again? I already told you that I already imagined how I would be strung on a spit, so I decided finally, in short, there was nothing. On the floor of the cones, it doesn't count. An awesome statement, so it's according to your logic if I take someone in my mouth, then it's not cheating either? It's already good to make a row, I'm not your husband yet. Maybe I should remind you that half of the tribe fucked you? Go to hell, you brute, I'm leaving, it's better to go back to the pirates and even to the cannibals than with you. Pashka grabbed the girl in his arms and pressed her to him so that the bones cracked, and looking straight into her eyes said, Diana, so I only love you and only want to live with you, and if we get out of here, then we'll play a wedding. These Spanish women, I just feel sorry for them. Come on, let go, you'll crush me and I am not asphalt skating rink. That's it, I'm not angry anymore, I just never even thought that I would be so jealous. By the way, these are not Spaniards, but French women. And they speak 3 languages fluently, including Spanish, French and English. By the way, I am a translator, I even had an experience exchange practice in Britain. You don't know anything about me, for example, that I, Inez, finished with a gold medal. You're my excellent student, I'll kiss you. I'm sure you honestly earn grades because your language is just magical. You idiot, you only think about one thing, one place, what's hanging from the waist down, like all men. By the way, I found out how these frogs got here. Interesting? Of course it's interesting, say I'll lean against you again, I'm really bored, the guy muttered, stroking the girl's back and tilting her in the right direction. Just don't rush, I like it slower. Just make sure that no one attacks from behind, the girl replied, sticking out her ass and smiling at something of her own. Then she continued. There's a story that happened, the manager of their estate, Alejandro, and concurrently the lover of that red-haired fool, Valentine, slipped her a map with supposedly hidden treasures on this island. The second fool, Armel, dissuaded her parents and brothers from such an undertaking. But they didn't really listen to her, and when she fell in love with the young captain of the ship, she even sold her jewelry to replenish supplies for this voyage. That's only when they were halfway there, they were attacked by sea robbers. The battle was very fierce, but the pirates killed the whole team. They also wanted to feed their family to the fish, but one of the brothers blabbed about the treasures in exchange for life. They were locked up all the way to the shore, and only when they landed on the shore, the robbers seemed to have a roof torn off. Men began to be tortured, and women were raped. Can you imagine? Oh, class. Come on quickly. I'm all on the way. Just don't stop, Pashenka, I can see the stars now. Wow, what a huge one you have, it's right there for me, oh. Squeeze your chest tighter, for sure I can't cope with such a big guy alone. After such sophisticated lovemaking, the couple finally calmed down, and then, without being shy of their companions, they washed themselves in the stream and also sat down naked for a meal, and what are they shy about, after all that happened? And even because of the lack of at least some clothes. Hey, Dinka, you translate to these Spanish. French women, what, I'll give them some clothes. I had old overalls in the tractor there, in my opinion, a pea jacket, and then if I get started, I'll show these monkeys, Cuskin's mother, as my beloved Foreman Corn used to say, I'll shove in the unspeakable. Eat beat. The girl, absorbing the remains of wild boar by syllables, but very clearly explained to the women the immediate prospects, naturally adding a lot from herself. Fools! We will feed you, dress you, and protect you. You only have to listen to me until we get out of here. This man is only mine. Although on big holidays, no, it is only mine. Fools! We will feed you, dress you, and protect you. You only have to listen to me until we get out of here. This man is only mine. Although on big holidays, no, it is only mine. ENG. Fools! We will feed you, clothe you, protect you. You only have to listen to me until we get out of here. This guy is only mine. Although on big holidays, no, it's still just mine. Then she smiled and climbed to choose clothes. After everyone was dressed in everything, everyone looked at each other. Pashka neighed so much that he even scared off the parrots on the branches. If he was wearing his clothes, a confiscated shirt, pants and shit-eating shoes, then the young ladies stuck into 3 overgrown overalls. Moreover, they were all in varying degrees of contamination. Dinka also put on a huge, torn pea jacket and looked like a real homeless woman from the station square. Soon everyone was laughing, to the point of stomach pain, which is understandable, a protective reaction of the body to a stressful situation. Everyone, women of my harem, wash off, otherwise you won't be washed in the bathhouse later. I'll take care of the tractor for a while. Half an hour later, all the things were already drying in the branches, and happy and Ed in fuel oil. Pashka got out from under his caterpillar unit with a joyful face. Today is my day, the tractor is on the move, the diesel fuel tank is almost full, 2 spare cans have not fallen off. So, it's time to visit someone. Is a red debt payment, consenting girls? Then he went up to each of them and kissed them on the cheek, almost brotherly. The potential wife only gritted her teeth, but did not say anything, realizing that Pashka was planning something very risky, and all the persuasions would get stuck with him, only waved his hand in displeasure. The morning in the cannibal village did not portend anything unusual, except that the ground under the flimsy bungalows would tremble and an unknown monster would attack their village, puffing noise and smoke, breaking thick trees like matches. Half an hour later, there was nothing left of the settlement, everything was breaking and running in front, and behind everything was shitting and crying, somehow, if in a simple way. Several particularly warlike savages began to fire at this beast with bows, but the arrows with bone tips only bounced off both the glass and the sides of the bulldozer. Damn, it's a pity that I dropped a sledgehammer somewhere, it wouldn't be too superfluous. I would show these Voroshilov shooters where the crayfish hibernate, the driver grumbled with displeasure, pulling the control levers. In one place, the iron horse stalled, and when the tractor driver carefully leaned out from behind the cab, to his surprise he found a broken chest with jewelry in the ruins of someone's hut. The glitter of gold jewelry and coins even made his eyes ache. Realizing that he would not have another chance to become a Rockefeller, Pashka pulled off his pea jacket and began piling handfuls of belongings into it. Fortunately, almost no one noticed this looting, well, except that some shabby grandpa, in feathers and beads, was very ruined. Old Pank Sharash. Yazatank Shaplaml, Zulshuvnuiknsts. He puffed, trying to drive away the giant with his pathetic wand, clearly claiming that this was his honestly earned pension. The former paratrooper could not stand such resentment, especially since the blows were weak, but very tangible. Hey, pygmy, why the hell do you have gold here in the jungle? That's all the time I haven't seen a single store here. I have a wedding soon, the expenses are different there, maybe I'll even buy a boat to get out of your backward, Binay. Fuck off in a good way. Let me tell you a funny anecdote and you calm down. Listen, in general, one guy somehow got to a desert island, and suddenly sees how a hell of a native boats are sailing to shore. Well, in general, the natives caught a dude and say, well, choose, death or mamba. The man wants to live, and chose mamba. They fucked him with the whole tribe, gave him a boat and let him go. And 2 years later he got back to the island, he was offered again, death or mamba. The man thought and decided, death. The chief came out and announced the verdict, death through mamba. Ha, ha ha ha, ept. I hope you don't practice this. What are you doing with an axe? So they still practice. The grandfather still did not calm down, and the tractor driver just threw the poor guy up a tree, teaching on the fly, listen old, it's not good to eat people. It's better to translate your tribe into bananas, be kinder and people will reach out to you. After that, the faithful caterpillar mechanism turned around on the remains of this wigwam and, like a tank, began to make its way in the opposite direction. After a couple of kilometers, familiar places began to be seen, then to my horror I saw beautiful women rushing towards him at full speed, and a huge shaggy orangutan slowly running on 4 paws from behind, and even with a horse pussy, below the knee. Damn it, does he lack his own females? He coveted mine, now I'll show him who is the leader in this tribe. With these words, the guy stopped the tractor, got out of the cab and tightened his grip on the crowbar, which was very successfully stuck to the side of the cab. When the unfortunate fugitives with screams, tears and snot, jumped into the cabin, closing all the shutters, then Pashka saw this unusual giant up close, even doubted whether he would overcome it. After all, if a man was 2 meters tall, then a mutant has all 3 and clearly more fists. In addition, his head was more like a horse's, only with sharp fangs. The mutation must be some kind of mutation, or maybe his folder successfully registered the mare, the paratrooper thought, but did not say this hypothesis out loud. Well, gorilla. There is no reception against scrap, if not another scrap. The guy shouted threateningly, and while the primate was beating his chest, trying to scare the competitor, he slapped with all his strength on the bonehead, in the sense of the head. What can I say? The crowbar even bent, and the mutant, muttering something, fell on his back, and with him became like a snake crawling into a thicket of furry and his priap. That's it, girls. Alpha male is finally decided, it's me. Get out of the tractor on board, we need to drive away. As if the natives did not come to their senses, I drove there to their shaman in the tambourine, maybe offended. The women looked with disbelief through the glass at the defeated primate, and then they still opened the doors and began vying to kiss their savior. Pavel, tu es notre heroes. Merci de nous avoir sauvé la vie, ce terrible singe voulu nous abuser, bien plus encore, frn. Pavel, you are our hero. Thank you for saving our lives. This terrible monkey wanted to abuse us, although much more. The Frenchwomen vied with each other, and Diana only buried her face in his shoulder and began to cry softly. It's good to breed dampness. I remembered an anecdote here, just in a similar situation, when a gorilla caught a woman to fuck her. The husband says to his wife, now tell him that you can't, and you have a headache. Ha 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 ha, funny isn't it? Okay, don't bite my shoulder, it hurts, let's go already. I will cut off all your wealth at night, then who will need you? Come on, I'm already silent, can't I make a joke? Speaking of wealth, I have a good dowry for you. Now I'll find a quieter place, I'll hide you there and go bargain with the pirates. They will not sell the boat, in a good way, we will forcibly privatize it, as our oligarchs are different enterprises. More precisely, we will definitely not cope with such a colossus, but we can bargain for a boat with a sail. You need to get out of here anyway, before they devour you, as not savages so different creatures. Chapter 6. Equam memento rebus in arduis serve mentem. Remember, try to keep your presence of mind in difficult circumstances. On this day, the women did not let their hero go categorically. After so many shocks, they even slept together, hugging tightly. Moreover, Diana, despite jealousy, allowed her new girlfriends to take advantage of a man for his intended purpose. Well, what, women's solidarity, it happens differently, especially when every minute you can be devoured or the same, well, you understand. In the morning, our hero still realized that pirates speaking exclusively Spanish, Russian obscene definitely would not understand, and therefore he took with him an interpreter, Diana, especially since she had extracted from her friends in misfortune that their leader there seemed to be an Englishman, and would surely understand the translation. The main thing, stay behind me, do not stick out, shout to them what I say and immediately run to our cave, and if everything is fine, then I will get to your cave today. The tractor driver admonished his fighting girlfriend and significantly slapped his palm on the ass. Stop lecturing me already, I'm not some kind of fool, only something tells me that these criminals are unlikely to negotiate. Why such pessimism? You look over there, said the friend, pointing a thin finger towards the ocean. Yes, with these scumbags, a different approach is needed. Purely what animals? The guy muttered menacingly, staring at what he saw. The huge vessel for some reason ran aground. Either the tide caught them suddenly, or they came too close to the shore, but the ship was almost completely lying on wet sand. But the worst thing was that there were 4 corpses hanging on his nose. Apparently it was the father and sons of this stupid family. I think they were still alive, at least one of them for sure, Samodruchko stated sullenly, clenching his fists. He did not take any weapons to the negotiations, hoping to negotiate amicably with the bandits and escape at the first threat. A little further away, a couple of parliamentarians saw a dozen captured aborigines with their hands tied and pads on their shoulders. Approaching a place clear of plants and at quite a safe distance, the man white started waving an almost white towel, trying to attract attention. The girlfriend firmly stood behind him, shaking nervously with excitement and almost half fainted. Pirates! The tractor driver of the collective farm, 40 years without a crop, Pavel Samodruchko, is talking to you. I offer you some of the gold in exchange for a sailboat, with a week's supply of food and rum, for 4 people. You have something else to add? The parliamentarian was not allowed to finish, but they fired a volley from the side cannon, fortunately not aimed, and therefore the core crashed into a tree behind his back and smashed it to smithereens. Immediately after that, a bunch of thugs rushed in pursuit, striving to add a couple more slaves to their living collection. Well, idiots, hold on. Don't you want to be nice? It will be for you in every way and in all places. Dinka, run to the women, hide there and so that you can't be heard or seen. Here the kids' bazaar will be up to bloody snot. Having shouted it all on the move, Pashka pushed the girl towards the camp, and he ran in the other direction, where his faithful iron friend was already waiting for him. Literally a couple of minutes later, the rumbling car, breaking bushes and trees, drove to the beach and rushed towards the enemy like a tank. The whole calculation was for surprise, as in the case of savages, and practically the idea was a success. The formidable machine, rumbling with tracks and an iron plow, was in smoke. The amplified signal, roaring like the howl of a bear, made the ears of even the most fearless bandits curl into a tube. Frozen with amazement, they stared at the unprecedented beast, not fully understanding whether to shoot at it or to flee, who to where. You vile creatures started it first. On board. I will make you love your homeland and defecate in your underwear. The former paratrooper shouted with all his might, remembering these parting words of Petty Officer Korn, and crashed into the side of the schooner at full speed. From the incredible impact, the strong boards cracked, unable to withstand such brazen abuse, and the tractor broke in. To say that it scared the pirates is to say nothing. They began to run away, and with them the captured savages. The ship swayed and almost fell on its side, but the formidable agricultural industry unit was already punching through the second wall from the middle, completely depriving this watercraft of its main function, to swim, that is, to sail. Only some of the sea robbers, led by the captain, came to their senses and began firing towards Pashka from muskets and powder guns. The tractor driver only waved the tire iron cheerfully, saying, "What are the limitless, don't you like it? No one told you that it would be easy. I'm not like that, life is like that, shameful wolves." After driving about a kilometer, he went deeper into the jungle and headed to the parking lot so that the bandits could not find a shelter on his tracks. The tractor driver had to tie thick branches to the plowing the tracks of the caterpillars. At least he hoped so. There was a new opportunity here. During this masking operation, a giant spider with a red belly and 4 dots in the middle jumped on Pashka's back. Exel Moxel. Yoke in the drawbar. Are you a ladybug of the coast confused? The guy shouted, shaking off this arthropod and trying to kick it with his foot. The attacker's fighting stance clearly said that the creature would not give up without a fight. Well, what do you need? Is this your territory, or what? Or are your cows hiding somewhere, and the mother? Go away until I crack your head. The former paratrooper barked and already tried to drive away the insect with a tire iron, as they unscrupulously spat cobwebs at him, so much so that he was completely blown into the bushes with clutches of eggs. Well, you arthropod bastard, now I'll wind a web on your ass. Pashka roared like a wounded animal and with difficulty tore off the sticky substance. Then, cursing, he jumped into the tractor and started the engine. After 10 minutes of peculiar plowing, all the bushes, thickly edged with cobwebs, were uprooted. Imagine his surprise when Pashka saw cocoons with human remains between the clutches of future cobwebs. When, purely out of curiosity, he cut one of them, he immediately recognized a short native, dried up like a mummy. Yes, I would not like to end my life like this. You need to tear your claws out of here, as one great man used to say. Then seeing a female spider wound on a caterpillar, he philosophically added, "For dog is dog's death." Soon the iron unit was puffing with fuel oil again, but after a few kilometers it stopped again, this time to intercept captured slaves along the way. These unfortunate people got entangled in ropes between the trees, and wooden shackles did not allow them to get free. Pashka did not tempt fate, but simply threw his folding knife at their feet with the words, "You guys don't be angry with me, for your village, it's your own fault. I think that you also need to be buried. These sea ducks can no longer be dumped from the island, which means that they will begin to catch you and shoot you. Run, cute, run." If something happens, we will be friends at home. It is unlikely that the Aborigines understood such an intricate tirade. But what was the man's surprise when, arriving at the shelter ending his mechanism with branches, Pashka saw a basket of fruit and several wild piglets shot with arrows near his entrance. At the bewildered look of his three-member harem, the guy just spread his hands muttering, "It's awesome not to get up, not otherwise the savages somehow figured us out and made an offering, so to speak, gratitude for saving their carcasses. I really didn't think that such a neighborhood would benefit us. You'd better tell us how you dealt with the pirates. Didn't they shoot anything valuable for you there?" asked his beloved bride, stroking his groin with her hand, and the other two stared at him with loving eyes, realizing that it was necessary to observe the cue. "Yes, nothing special, my ran, shot him, my screamed, his fell. A better joke is a new one, Earth," the castaway exclaimed wearily, getting out on the shore. "Meat!" the natives shouted joyfully, running out of the bushes. "Well, if it's no joke, the pirates are okay. I saw, and why are you all in a web?" "Okay, I'll tell you anyway, you won't leave me alone, there's how it turned out." Chapter 7. All night long, tractor driver Pashka dreamed of some devilry, and the last thing he remembered was how a pirate ship captures a black vortex and takes it back to the village of Dovka through the portal of movement. He landed on a collective farm field instead of his tractor, and Chairman Samodruchko Aristarch Ivanovich began to beat him right on the head with a tire iron with hysterical cries. "Where have you put my tractor, Pashka? Our collective farm Kuzmik will go bankrupt because of you. The Antichrist. You're a cow's cake, the fifth wheel in the cart. I'll show you Kuzkin's mother, in kind." Waking up and scratching the back of his head, the guy thought, that's what it's all about, will the dream really be prophetic? Or again, suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The morning of the next day was even more amazing than all the previous ones. It all started with the fact that after leaving the cave for a small need, the former paratrooper found a dozen young natives near the entrance, all naked according to tradition, and with all the clothes only beads on the neck and short skirts made of animal skins. "You captival gag, dogvtsniak. Jasperango apshul nipgami," said the bravest of them and turned around and knelt on her knees, sticking out her ass. All the others repeated her cunning maneuver. What the fuck is going on here?" Diana shouted loudly, looking out of the shelter, and then laughing merrily added, "Hey girls. I guess these pygmies are giving Pashka a gift or want him to increase their population. Just don't tire yourself out, hearty. You'll sharpen your pencil, what will we do with you later?" Then she started calling her friends in English. "Ladies, go and have a look at our male while he is still alive. I was a fool who thought that I would only share it with you, and he has already formed a whole harem here. Gulchatai for marriageable, Edrit beat. Hey girls. Along the way, these pygmies give Pashka or want him to increase their population. Look, just don't overdo it, hearty. You'll grind your pencil, what should I do with you later?" Then she began to call her girlfriends already in English. "Ladies, go and have a look at our male while he is still alive. I was a fool who thought that I would only share it with you, and he has already formed a whole harem here. Gulchatai for marriageable, Edrit beat. Babonki, go take a look at our male while he is still alive. I was a fool to think that I would only share it with you, but he has already formed a whole harem here. Gulchatai is marriageable, eat, beat." When the Frenchwomen appreciated this women's stunted army, they even opened their mouths. "I was slurping, you fools, I don't need these savages, I would cope with 3 of you, but I would get to the first port," the man answered somehow fatally and realized that it would not work out for him to pee in an excited state. "I don't understand, why did you decide to leave us? Come on, Dinka, where am I without you now? You love me, but these tourists should be attached. They probably have a good dowry, since they speak in 3 languages, maybe they will help us get settled here. Mind you, I won't share treasures with them." "That's good, that's right, dear, everything is in the family, apart from the infection. You explain to the blackest beauties that you have a lunch break and let them go to your place, get out before I get mad." With these words, the girl raised a heavy club and shouted, "For my man, I will tear any one, like an ace of a hot water bottle." She began to wave it so that the unfortunate Aborigines understood everything without translation, running in all directions. "That's better, look Casanova, if I see you with at least one cannibal, I'll bite. No, I'd rather bite off, well, you understand me, dear." "Yes, how, there is no understanding, only we need to be in alliance with this tribe. After all, those scumbags from the ship will soon begin the roundup, and there are at least 50 of them there, no water, no food, and even their trough has become leaky by our grace. They are very angry now. Pashka, you can negotiate as you want, just don't sell your gadgets, you can even offer us to their leader," the girl said seductively, bending over, but when he nodded, she flashed her eyes so viciously that the guy immediately realized that this one would definitely bite off, at the very root and without anesthesia. "Okay, everything will be chickaboo-bony. I think that the savages themselves are interested in us exterminating these pirates and getting away. After lunch, we will go with the delegation to the negotiations. I have one thought, how to combine their skills and our ingenuity together, like that dumpling. We will all be together, you in my overalls look more like men than women, let them be afraid and think that there are a lot of us." After lunch, a consensus was reached as well as possible, with the help of gestures, drawings on the ground and some kind of mother. It was possible to conclude a temporary truce and even develop an approximate plan for the occupation of this island from sea robbers. The main task was to lure the bandits into an ambush. As it turned out, some vile creatures lived in the distant caves of these territories, similar to giant leeches and very fond of human blood. For all the inhabitants of the tribe, going there was considered forbidden, so only pale-faced aliens could be bait. "Here, there's no fucking prospect of getting to the worms for lunch." "How do you imagine it?" Dianka asked after all she had heard. "Let's go home, I'll tell you everything. The landing force does not give up without a fight. No one but us. Have you heard about this? The main thing is not to tell these imported fools anything, otherwise they will run away or panic. I understand that we will climb into the caves as bait." "Clever girl, everything is correct. Just before you climb there, I will burn everything with diesel fuel. I have 2 canisters full. Then we'll take you out, through side tunnels, but I'll back up the main entrance with a tractor. They won't move it in a lifetime. How's the idea? Does it sound good in words? That's how it will be in practice. Maybe you like these short girls, and you want to feed all of us to leeches? Don't talk nonsense, there is simply no other way out. These scoundrels will figure us out sooner or later and kill us, and so, at least some chance will appear. But first I need to go to the intelligence." "Wait, Samodruchko, are you going to the pirates again? Haven't you been running around?" "No, the savages keep an eye on them, that they probably patch up their vessel there, but they get food, maybe they get black gold, on the hunt. It's like slaves will be caught, so there are such wilds that the devil will break his leg. You probably forgot, but a dozen savages, I just freed from pirate captivity, although maybe there are several tribes registered. Without a language, it's not clear if they are at enmity with each other, or maybe they are friends." "Okay. The morning of the evening is more complicated. Their leader has drawn a map for me here on the bark of a tree. I'll take a look for now, and I'll go from morning. If you want to come with me, if you're not afraid of leeches. Yes, there's also a gift for you. Do you remember the dress you once had? So these cannibals found it in the bushes and saved it for I don't know what needs. Here's my clawed pussy, you can feel like a woman again. Otherwise in my smelling of fuel oil overalls you look more like a mechanic than an office girl. By the way, they also pleasantly surprised me, they found a favorite sledgehammer. As soon as they got here, is it unclear? So, they are at home, every bush is familiar to them. By the way, I also remembered one joke. 2 anthropologists settled on different islands of Polynesia to study the Aborigines. Soon one of them swam to the other and saw him surrounded by natives. "How are you?" he asks. "Cool. I have made a great dissy. Look." Then he pointed to a palm tree and asked, "What is it?" "Natives, Mwamba Matanga." He points to the rock, "And what is this?" "Natives, Mwamba Matanga." He points to the sky, "And this?" "Natives, Mwamba Matanga. The one, see. They have only one word in their dictionary. Mwamba Matanga. Another scientist, strange. And on my island, Mwamba Matanga means index finger. Why aren't you laughing? Are you thinking about unwashed aborigines again? I'll get out of harm's way, I'll put on a dress. When Diana, hiding in the bushes, put on her seemingly forever lost wardrobe, she even cried from the excess of feelings and memories of her past life. Chapter 8. Aqua, cavat, lapidem non 6, sed seep cadendo. That night, Pashka practically did not dream of anything like that, except that he was a Siberian cat in a dream in March, and cute cats rubbed against his sides, luring him to the marriage bed. There were a lot of tech females, a lot, but he was all alone and soon he just began to suffocate in their fluffy embrace. Especially when he purred to them that in harsh Siberia he froze his bells. Damn, well, at least this time everything has come true. The guy shouted, realizing that he was no longer sleeping, and 3 female bodies were actively rubbing around him at the same time. Until the very morning, his chosen ones did not let him sleep, anticipating what a dangerous adventure their defender got involved in. His amber stem so often and so actively penetrated into all the jade gates of the chosen ones that it seemed to rub both himself and them calluses. After all, Pashka himself did not know whether he would return alive, so he tried for 2 and even managed to squeeze into the black doors of French women, as the ancient aristocracy also penetrated there very often, without knocking. Damn louse. At the same time, they shouted very eloquently in French. Pashka, tu es un monster. Votre arme est comme un canon de pont qui n'austichia. Chérie, ne t'irrite pas. Allez, plus. Pasha, you're just a monster. Your gun is like a deck cannon that tears us apart. Darling, just don't stop. Come on, more. Driving up to the forbidden territories on a tractor, the tractor driver realized that there would be no easy way. He was attacked by a pack of hyenas, and judging by the way they tried to bite into the caterpillars, they were very hungry and voracious. In order to lighten the car for high speed, the tractor driver had to detach the iron bucket and plow with the help of a much-loved sledgehammer. Now he already regretted it. Furthermore, no wonder they say size matters, he was attacked by a giant anaconda. Unfortunately, the tractor was stuck in a small river at that moment. The guy was in the cabin when this overgrown 10 meters long, descending from a tree, began to twist the cabin into a ram's horn. Breadwinner, don't let me die so stupidly at the dawn of years. I will fill you with the best fuel if we get out. I will make major repairs and paint in the color metallic. I'll tear it off with a claw and snot. The driver began to mumble monotonously, pulling the control levers and looking around in fright. He uttered the last phrase, remembering the unforgettable battalion commander Shepelenko, personally showing by example how with the help of spit and nail it was possible to tear off any dirt from the toilet. There were very few chances for the former paratrooper to survive in such a close embrace. When the cabin was already creaking, and the glass was edged with a thin mesh of cracks, the old mechanism, slipping and raking water with small pebbles, finally broke out into the open. Surely in the iron heart of this beast, concern for his rider has awakened, or maybe he has already presented himself after a full upgrade with a brilliant tuning. Soon the tractor began to wind the tail of the forest monster, which had so successfully descended onto the tracks. Pashka stopped only when he completely ground this unlucky hunter with the sharp edges of the trucks. He tied the severed head with a fire axe with a wire directly to the engine hood to heighten the intimidation of everything that ran, crawled, and flew. Damn it, and how do I lure these pirates here, and even so that they themselves climb into the cave to the leeches? The guy shouted loudly, pulling out huge pieces of meat stuck in the tracks and as if remembering something added. Exel moxel. Yoke in the drawbar. So after all, you can attract them with gold there, let them get it themselves, and we'll see how it ends. With these thoughts, he finally reached a rocky ridge densely overgrown with small shrubs. Numerous holes were visible in the rocky walls, and from a distance this mountain range resembled a piece of cheese, from which some creatures periodically flew out, outwardly similar to bats, but only with crocodile heads. "Ah, how disgusting you are, everyone." As the savages explained, these gargoyles, or whatever their names are, live on the upper floors, and big leeches hide at the very bottom. How to lure at least one. According to rumors, they hunt only at night and drag all the prey into burrows. Somewhere here in the drawing there was an image of the entrance. Pashka Samodruchko began to talk to himself, approaching the stones and holding a hammer firmly in his hands. The subsequent event was so rapid that it literally stalled all the thought processes of our hero. Tentacles with claws at the ends jumped out of the wall overgrown with thick vines and, catching the uninvited guest by his clothes, began to pull him inside. "Where are you going, you fucking louse? The landing party is not afraid of the sea. You wanted my blood, now you're going to wash your face." The guy shouted with all his might and began to swing his invariable sledgehammer, smashing everything he could reach. He crushed some furry balls into a flat cake, which rolled out so successfully from under the heavy body. A wild scream made his hair stir not only on his head, but even on his ass. When these bells, with appendages, were drawn into the wall of vines, something began to stick out from there. The monster was outwardly similar to a four-eyed octopus, densely edged with fur, where instead of velcro, sharp claws like a tiger were observed. When this miracle Udo opened its mouth, the guy realized that his whole tractor, along with the plow and the tractor driver, would easily enter it. It came out, scum, from corn, as my uncle used to say. "Everything is a man, or whatever your name is. I understand everything. I'm sorry that I spoiled your scratches and gave you in the balls. It's my fault." The guy muttered, slowly backing away and trying to talk the mutant teeth, continued. "Do you like jokes, many-armed?" Recently, one remembered, listen, the colonizers sailed to the island with the natives. Well, they think they can honestly buy land from them. And of the natives, no one speaks their language, and the tribal leader just understands a little, but does not speak. They came and said, "We want to buy a river." The leader of his tribe said in his own way, "Tribe, lively, Galulu. Galulu. Colonizers, okay, so we take it. But we also want to buy a forest. Galulu. Galulu." The colonialists, satisfied with the deal, arranged a feast, ate their fill, went to the forest to relieve a small need. And there the Indians are just coming from hunting. They look, the men are pissing. One says, "Look, what a big white man, and what a small Galulu he has. Isn't it funny? Why aren't you smiling? Your Galulu is very nice, judging by the size of your furry bells. I see four-eyed, you have no sense of humor, that my foreman is corn. Well, in short so far." With these words, the terrified plowman barely managed to jump back into the car and reverse. He stopped only when a red light flashed, signaling a lack of fuel. "We were lucky today, very lucky. I wonder what the cannibals took this monster for leeches? Is it really a setup? It's also good that the beast is crawling slowly, or it can't go further than its cave, but it's better to stay away from it," the tractor driver philosophically remarked and climbed for spare cans. Pashka got to his temporary shelter only after midnight, hungry, angry, in an old, dirty demob tunic found under the seat, ed in some kind of burrs and with a parrot on his shoulder. What kind of parrot? Yes, the fuck knows him, he says that he nailed himself to him. And, apparently, the bird was smart, as she constantly repeated, "I want to eat, drink and fuck. I want to eat, drink and fuck. Exel moxel. Yoke in the drawbar." The next day, the plan to exterminate the sea robbers finally began to be implemented. Chapter 9. Deus manes placari victimis humanis, the shadows of the dead demand the propitiation of the gods with human sacrifices. Having woken up and satisfied his small need near the nearest bush, Samodruchko headed to the local waterfall, where he sometimes meditated before a difficult decision in his life. This time he first heard a cheerful laugh, and then saw three charming nymphs, his voluntarily forced harem. For the first time in his life, a man regretted that he wasn't the sultan of their polygamy traditions. But then remembering that it is also necessary to provide for them all equally, and there will be at least 2 evil mothers-in-law, he became sad. The initial idea of enjoying the bodies of his wives was also brushed aside by Pashka with a big squeak. Because he understood that after sexual pleasures, there would be no more forces left for the war. With the sunrise, an incomprehensible iron cart, growling like an animal and emitting smoke, rattled in front of the pirates, amazed by their insolence. Last time, it swept by so quickly that the bandits did not really understand anything, and did not even accept attempts to catch up with this fire-breathing dragon. Intending to repair their vessel, the robbers did not succeed much in this, since frequent tides constantly flooded the hull, interfering with full-fledged repairs. Now they clearly observed the rider of a strange design, and his incomprehensible, but judging by his facial expressions, indecent gestures. Most of all they were shocked by the glitter of jewelry from the cabin window. Pashka leaned out of the cab and threatening with his fist shouted angrily. Well, the nonsense, unwashed, passive homos, wanted treasures, catch up. Then he twisted the muzzle with it and pressed the throttle lever. Vidue goes. Ponte al dia rapidamente con este hombre insolente y toma nuestro oro. Quien traiga su cabeza recibirá mi parte. Salvación de contramar esta desde el canon de popa, tal vez al menos esta vez golpes. Sin demonios en mi culo. The captain also saw the whole obscure picture. After rubbing the bandage on his arm and holding the telescope to his eye, he spat overboard and gave an order in Spanish. Vidue goes. Ponte ala rapidamente con este hombre insolente y toma nuestro toro. Quien traiga su cabeza recibirá mi parte. Salvación de contramar esta desde el canon de palo. Tal vez al menos esta vez golpes. Sin demonios en mi culo. Hanged men. Quickly catch up with this insolent man and take away our gold. Whoever brings his head will get my share. Bosun salvo from the stern gun, maybe at least this time you will hit. 100 devils in my ass. Then he nodded his head dejectedly and added in English, so that no one would understand. I personally will hang this rogue Alejandro by the balls. This scoundrel managed to deceive his owners by slipping them my map and, for sure, delves into luxury, and I have lost not only the ship, but all hope will come back. The team with guns and muskets at the ready immediately rushed after the incomprehensible mechanism and immediately a shot rang out. The cast iron core again shattered an innocent tree in half. At that very moment, no less tragicomic events were taking place in the tribe of savages. Since most of the men, according to Pashka's plan, were sitting in ambush near a cave with a monster, young males of wild monkeys took advantage of this, very deftly catching frightened short natives and using them for their intended purpose. The comical thing was that the trio of the most active primates somehow smelled pale-faced females peacefully resting in a cave. Most likely, a certain number of black women ran away in that direction. The subsequent events were very epic. If at first the women screamed in horror and pain, trying to escape from the strong hairy embrace, then they got used to it and even began to swing their hips. Diana, with only her usual optimism, standing in an inclined position and stammering from being pushed from behind, muttered in English. Girls, it's better not to resist, liet, seer, after Pashka's drin, na, not so fatal. As there, they say, you can't give, fuck, change, relax, smile and have fun, only to our Samodruchko, don't say anything, just, those. Cattle, on a hare, melt, let's go slow, not, I'll finish now. The French women only squealed joyfully, shouting in their native language. Pashka, bravo Illinois un gros bout. Un singe sans de fort. Alejandro Coquin on va Louis Donna Lula. Pashka well done, he has a big end. A monkey without a flaw. Alejandro is a scoundrel, we'll give him a cradle. Where only they learned this, we can only guess. After a couple of hours, the exhausted animals crawled away from such passionate females, barely alive. Moreover, Dinka, holding the hind paw of the healthiest of them, hissed viciously in his ear. What are you doing, darling? It won't be so easy to escape from me. Pashka went to bed after 5 times, and you only ate me with your sausage 4 times, come back, miserable. Bib mo. At the very moment when the women themselves began to rate their abusers, Pashka managed to drive up almost right next to the cave with the monster. On the way, fortunately, no one attacked him, either the natives dispersed everyone, or the shaggy octopus fairly hunted. Abandoning the tractor to the mercy of fate, the former paratrooper kissed him on the hood, grabbed his sledgehammer and hid behind a large stone nearby. A gang of sea robbers appeared about 15 minutes later, all out of breath and very angry. When the stern men finally saw the hunted monster with gold inside, they began to shout and shoot into the air in joy. Then a real leapfrog began. Everyone wanted to grab as much gold jewelry as possible and give a competitor in the eye for old grievances. The fight was serious. The scoundrels have long learned to hone their skills in numerous fights. Pashka was very worried, because there was absolutely no movement from the terrible cave near which he parked. The guy already thought that the furry animal was sleeping or had died, as he finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw numerous appendages crawling out in search of prey. The pirates noticed the danger when these tentacles began to catch and drag several of them into the cave. The screams of the wounded and the shots of powder charges filled the whole neighborhood again. Everything the bandits had was used: sabers, axes, muskets, rifles, even a barrel of gunpowder flew into the monster, exploding somewhere in the area of his long-suffering eggs. After that, the beast really broke up, fell out of the cave, breaking part of the wall and tearing thick vines, as if they were cobwebs. When this jelly-like mass began to spread over the area, only then Samodruchko realized how huge it was. His long-suffering tractor completely disappeared under the hairy carcass. Most of the sea robbers were crushed or had already been sent entirely into the monster's mouth, which was already running out of steam in the process, as it continuously snorted, baring sharp fangs and trying to get into its hole. "A place that the Lord has left forever, and the devil bypasses," whispered the tractor driver, slowly crawling to the rear. The remnants of the thugs were running there as fast as they could, so the next stage of the operation was beginning. In the narrowest place between the rocks, just where the ill-fated river with the prematurely deceased anaconda flowed, a real massacre began. The cannibal natives, sitting in shelters, shot with bows and threw spears. In response, chaotic musket shots were heard, and finally both groups came together in hand-to-hand combat. When the former paratrooper finally got to the battlefield, he had practically nothing to do. There were about an equal number of pirates and cannibals floating in the river. No more than 5 of the most notorious bandits remained alive on the shore. They used sabers to try to fend off 24 cannibals attacking with spears and axes. Fucking babaca. The yoke is in my drawbar. All men, stop butting. I personally sentenced these scoundrels according to the laws of wartime. We don't take prisoners, and there's nothing to eat. The guy shouted and rushed at the enemies. His sledgehammer flew around him like a fan, delivering devastating blows to various parts of the robber's body, and soon it was over. You are lucky today, you will taste plenty of enemy hearts. Now it's every man for himself. The coast is, and the jungle is yours. We don't touch you, you don't touch us, otherwise, axe head. Got it? Pashka said, looking sullenly at each of the aborigines. It is not known whether they understood or not, but everyone nodded their heads in the affirmative. In short, we will be friends at home, but at a distance. I'll talk to Captain One Eye like a man myself. I'll pull his other eye on his ass, the limitless one, because of him the tractor lost and treasures. Okay, let's go, we still need to get home, although without gold and without a tractor, who the fuck needs me? By the way, I remembered one joke here. An American, a German and a Russian got to an uninhabited island. They were captured by the natives. The natives say, "Who will name what we don't know about? We will let them go, and if we know, we will eat them." The American says, "Computer." The natives moved aside and whispered, saying, "This is such a thing, you tap on the keys, and letters are written on the screen." They ate an American. The German says, "Mobile phone." The natives moved aside and whispered, saying, "This is such a thing, you press the buttons and you can talk to another person." They ate a German. The Russian says, "KGB." The natives stepped aside and whispered, saying, "We don't know, go in peace, but explain what the KGB is." The Russian says, "What's there to explain, the same cannibals as you." They will step aside, whisper, and there is no man. What's not funny? So I'm sad too. The guy muttered all this, carefully wiping his weapon from the blood, and then seeing how the savages gutted their future dinner, he spat at his feet and silently wandered to the shelter. Chapter 10. Cujus vis hominis ist error, nullius nisi incipientis in error perseverare. It is inherent in every human being to be deluded, but no one should remain in delusion except the reckless. Pashka reached his shelter even after midnight, where he was met by all 3 wives, as if he were a general after a triumphant battle. They separated him, washed him, fed him, massaged his whole body with all their sweet places. They only calmed down when they saw in the firelight his idiotic but very satisfied smile and complete exhaustion of his manhood. Well, why the girls have rolled the guy. You whatever you want, but I only allow my boyfriend to use it for a while, so to speak, until better times. That's when we get out in these dents, then look for your own men. We don't live in a harem here, for now, at least. Do not blame me. Dianka said this in English and showed her friends her fist. They only sighed sorrowfully and nodded silently in agreement. By the way, I remembered a student joke, I'll translate it as best I can. The natives caught the student, hung him on a spit and began to fry him. The leader says, I'll leave now, and you turn him slowly. An hour later comes, the natives twist the student with all their might. The leader asks, what's the matter? I asked you to turn it slowly. The natives answer, slowly spinning, Master, he begins to eat potatoes. Ha ha ha, really funny? I mean, I already want to eat in the morning, while our hero is asleep. Let's go bungle up the old ladies. The natives caught the student, hung him on a spit and began to roast him. The chief said, I will go away now, and you spin him slowly. An hour later he comes back, the natives spin the student with all their might. The chief asks, what's the matter? I told you to spin slowly. The natives reply, we're spinning slowly, Master, he's eating potatoes. Ha ha ha, isn't that funny? I look at us and realize we've lost a lot of weight with this stallion. I'm just saying that it's morning and want to eat, while our heroi sleeps. Let's go cook something, ladies. It was only at lunchtime, after having a hearty lunch of fried bacon and drinking mango juice, that Pashka decided to negotiate with the pirate leader. He understood perfectly well that this thug had nothing to lose and was obviously preparing some meanness. What was his surprise when approaching the ill-fated schooner he saw no signs of life, and in the distance he saw a departing boat. He realized that he was dead here in the jungle. One-eyed cocksucker, and I wanted to put the other eye on the same place, the tractor driver muttered thoughtfully, looking at the boat, which was half repaired. Bloody hell, why did I make it so ugly? How can I sail on it now, and most importantly, with whom? I don't want to grow old here. He shouted, kicking innocent crabs that were milling around under his feet. Having described the situation to his girlfriend, the boy entered the cave and took out a jug with a heady drink, presented by the natives, and emptied it to the bottom. Then he stepped out into the passage and looking around with demented eyes drunkenly bellowed. Now I'm going to beat this octopus in the face and take my tractor, and with it I'll be able to do any repairs. The treasure will be ours too. And then he hiccuped and fell face down into the ground. It's always like that with these men, first they're heroes. Then they get drunk to the hog squeal, and we women have to make the right decisions. Come here girlfriends, I have one idea suitable, it's time to change our tattered rags for something more suitable, because we have already become like savages. When Pashka woke up with a terrible hangover, it was already dark. Dianka, Valayton, Armel, where are you girls? He shouted into the night gloom, sensing something bad, and as it turned out later, he was absolutely right. All night long Samodruchko did not sleep a wink and did not find out where his women had gone and what he should do. Therefore, to occupy himself, he decided to go to the damaged schooner in search of something useful. Already approaching, the tractor driver realized that he had greatly underestimated the pirates. The ship was almost completely repaired, and the one-eyed captain was standing on the bridge naked and smirking, holding a loaded musket in his hand. Inside the ship he could clearly hear women moaning, either in pain or in pleasure. Pashka's first thought was to break on board, blow everything to hell, and smash the captain's head with a sledgehammer. but seeing the insolent grin and remembering that the faithful hammer was left in the cave. The former paratrooper only sighed heavily, saying doomedly, "I take it my charges are trapped and you want some kind of ransom for them." The captain shouted something inside the galley, and from there a painfully familiar voice was heard. "Pashenka, my dear, forgive us, foolish fools, we didn't want to wake you up, we thought we'd get some stuff here and feel like women once again. You said yourself that the pirates had been killed or had escaped to the sea, so we—" She was not allowed to finish, as the formidable leader began to babble something, first in Spanish, then in French and finally switching to English, and Dianka began to translate through tears. "Pashka Samodruchko, if you want to get your women back, you must return us the treasures lost on this island and repair the galleon. These are the riches of the pirate guild, which means they need to be returned. The card that I slipped to the idiot Alejandro was needed to hire and then capture a fast ship. Even this is not the main thing, to recruit an experienced team, that was the real meaning. You robbed me of everything. Well, worst of all is that my pirate honor suffered. While you think about how to cope with this, we will use your women at our discretion. Mind you, there are still 10 people left with me, there are 10 cannons on deck, and therefore your savages will not help. Several people survived in that meat grinder, and I know a lot. Girls, I'll think something, you take care there. I will not leave you in trouble and show him Kuzkina's mother," shouted goodbye tractor driver and turned around sharply, so that his enemies would not see the tears glistening in his eyes, rushed to his temporary shelter. He needed a plan, and something in his head was already stirring. The former paratrooper crept up to the ill-fated cave as stealthily as possible. The sun had just begun to rise in the sky, and in its rays Pashka noticed his long-suffering tractor, and above it a huge slippery cuttlefish. At least that's what he thought, watching the moving outgrowths and sticky suction cups greedily sucking moisture from the dew on the cab. It seemed to the man that the creature was dying from lack of water. Exel moxel. The drawstring. "So what do you mean, you're the baby of that hairy beast and you don't have enough fluid? Is your mom sleeping in the cave?" Thoughtfully rubbing his chin, Samodruchko asked and added, "You, kid, hold on a little while your relatives have not crawled out, I'll start my tractor and take you to the river, and there you'll swim to the ocean. If you could hold one boat for me until I get there, you'd be worth a fortune." Having finished this profound phrase, the guy as carefully as possible got in front of the face of this baby, and began to start the machine. Most likely fortune was favorable to him, or maybe the limit of all the nasty things for today was over, but the engine started, and the car like a turtle slowly crawled backwards, dragging the unusual burden to its natural environment. I wondered what that bear looked like, who had fucked the sea octopus, as a result of which this miracle appeared. Said our hero, in the middle of the river, when the animal unknown to science slid into the water and dissolved there without a trace. When the tractor driver was already approaching the sandy shore, he looked back, making sure that all the bait treasures were in place. "Suck it. I'll give you all the gold. I'll give you half of it. Why would my woman need me without capital? If anything, let her take the French women and demand ransom from their relatives. They're nice women, but I don't like them anyway, but I do like Dianka, and some things are worth." Then the boy took away some of the treasure and hid it under a large rock on the sandy beach. When he rolled out to the parking lot, he saw a strange picture. The ship's hull was completely patched, it was in the water at the waterline, slowly rocking on the waves. Near the side stood all the surviving crew of robbers together with their one-eyed captain, and looked in horror at the tentacles of the cephalopod mollusk, firmly holding the hull of the ship. "Holy shit, that's my baby," and apparently he understood me somehow. And then believe in tales about the terrible kraken, it turns out to be very nice. "Hey, one-eyed wonder, let my young ladies go and go to all 4 sides, only on your little boat, and I'll get the ship, don't blame me. You won't need the gold, either. You'd better have plenty of food." When Dianka, who had climbed up on deck, translated the text, the leader immediately put a sharp knife to her throat and shouted, "No, I don't agree to that. I'd rather we all die in battle, but before that I'll painfully kill everyone you care about." "Wait, don't be in a hurry." The savages had fun with the jewels at first, but then they realized they didn't need them here. I guess you didn't hide them well enough for them to find them so easily. Your terms? They are the same. Since we managed to rebuild the ship ourselves, you only return the treasure to us, and we leave you our sailing boat and your whores in addition, or else. Fuck you, I agree, send your thugs for the gold. When you let the girls go, I'll command my many-armed friend to let you go. We're in the crosshairs of muskets and cannons, you've got nothing to risk. In a couple of minutes the exhausted women were put into the boat, and when they reached the shore in exchange for the gold, they began sobbing and kissing their liberator. Luckily the bandits had no idea how much jewelry there really was, and so they were happy with what they were offered. Samodruchko, wiping their tears from such unexpected feelings, only shouted in the direction of the ocean. Krakusha, let these bastards go. God's punishment will get them anyway. Girls, stand behind my back just in case they shoot. When the amazing beast fulfilled this instruction, and the ship floating away began to shrink in size, Pashka angrily added, Guns are not scary for us now, do whatever you want with them, my friend Kraken. I have other worries and other entertainments now. I remembered one anecdote again. The natives caught a Chinese, a Japanese, and a new Russian. The chief says, we'll make boats out of your skins, but we'll eat you ourselves, choose how you die. The Chinese chose a pistol and shot himself. The Japanese chose a katana and did harakiri, and the Russian chose a fork and began to stab himself and shouted to the natives, fuck you, not boats. Like that. The rescued women smiled cheerfully, even the French women who did not know a word of Russian. At the same time, a parrot, which had strayed on the road, sat on his shoulder and began to shout. I want to eat, drink and get laid. I want to eat, drink and get laid. Yexel moxel. The drawbar in the drawbar. Listen, ladies, and his talking sense, war is war, but lunch is on schedule, and then we'll decide how we'll live our lives. Chapter 11. Amicus cognoscitur amore, more, or, a friend is known by love, temper, face, deed. The forces of darkness were advancing, armadas of orcs, trolls, and goblins breaking through the ranks of Castle Atrew's defenders like black rocks in a sea wave. Unseen mechanisms buzzed loudly, spitting invisible arrows, piercing through the fighting dragons, though their armor could withstand any blade of the local lands. At the cost of his life, one of them clung dead center to his enemy and lunged downward, dragging them both to certain doom. A succession of spells came, deadly lightning bolts flew from each side and protective circles of energy fields emerged. The forces seemed to be equal, but not until the gargoyles appeared. Their heart-rending screams were maddening, and their sharp fangs and claws tore any warrior defender in half. Everybody, go behind the protective barrier, we will hold them off, save yourselves, shouted King Clauvidius, surrounded by the best men of his guard. This battle would be legendary, if any of the witnesses who had seen it survived. The travel portal opened for only a few minutes. The same ones that had helped save 50 elves, 30 or so dwarfs, a dozen hobbits, and only a couple of wizards from certain death. Some of them sat on an even more unseen beast spewing flames from a chimney. After the unprecedented force of the explosion, only smoking heads and bloody chunks of something were left at the site of the hit. The process of moving was chaotic, because to comply with all the spells inaccuracy did not work, so the release of almost 100 surviving characters occurred not in the neighboring kingdom of the Allies, and in the uncharted territory of the Between Worlds. Look, Sergeant, they are making a movie about elves and dwarfs. It's not just the Pindos, they've hijacked everything here. Look how natural everything looks, fire-breathing dragons, but for some reason they fight with our helicopters. It's like a surreal Lord of the Rings, reported Sergeant Stepashko to the senior guard, looking through binoculars at the incomprehensible movement at the bottom of the hill. Military Unit 998876NK7878990 was located deep in the taiga. Why exactly? It was a military secret, because even local bears and wild boars knew that it was better not to go into the territory of soldiers suffering from spermotoxicosis. There have been precedents, you know. Despite the strict discipline, remoteness from the high command and meager supply, which was provided only by helicopter, gave its disappointing results. The systematic irritation and dissatisfaction of the lower ranks of the military encouraged drunkenness and fights. Private Samodruchko, get the hell out of here, stop masturbating, unholster your machine gun. Look, a real dragon attacked the helicopter, maybe it's special effects, maybe it's all a hoax and they will attack us. Oh, man, I'm dreaming again. What do elves, dwarfs, dragons, and the rest of the fairy tale stuff have to do with it? I have a bad feeling, a very bad feeling, shouted the former paratrooper Samodruchko, jumping out of bed. All three spouses also woke up, staring at their man with frightened looks. Everything's fine, ladies, barracks stand down. I had a dream about the harsh army days of my past life, but who was not in Kurzakas, he will not understand. After being released from captivity, our heroes began to live practically a Swedish family. At first, however, Dianka was still jealous of her insatiable husband, but water grinds the stone. Translator resigned herself to the inevitable, and Valatin and her daughter Armel took an honorable second place at the box, at least until better times. The most surprising thing is that after a couple of months the Frenchwomen began to speak Russian like Praveta, Dorvidos, Muzichok. Pashka, give. To love me, this is a total pesets. In there, no doodah. Exel moxel. The drawbar in the drawbar. In contrast, the ex-paratrooper had also mastered the angelic language. Diana, my angelic queen, I love her very much. Diana is my angelic queen, I love her very much. For some reason he was embarrassed to say it in Russian. What can you take from a former paratrooper and a current tractor driver? He even acquired a few phrases in French. Valentine, avec sa fille Armel, sont les meilleurs amants de tous ceux qui me connaissent. Jem engage les aimer et les protéger. Valatin and her daughter Armel are the best lovers I know. I pledge to love and protect them. Though to tell the truth, except for the deputy's wife, who was weak at the front, and Dianka herself, he had no experience at all. This stay on the cannibal island could not be called a peaceful life. Literally after 2 weeks after the departure of the pirates, our four had to fight for their lives again. As it turned out, there were some more monsters unknown to modern science, namely, Morlocks. Ukup Venesota, Otsapi Pal GM, Torfis of Grald, What Vavaranstoev Peep, yelled the leader of the tribe of ogres and gesticulated with his hands, trying to insinuate to the paleface, fuck knows what. Only when he began to draw some vague silhouettes on the ground, it became clear, the natives were in trouble again. Hey, Pashal, it seems to me that these unfortunates were attacked again, and it was obviously cavemen. Look, there's a picture of a river and a cave with little men written on it. Why don't we do a little neighborly help? Wow, how quickly you changed your attitude towards them, and not so long ago they wanted to eat you, and let your driver for a kebab. Have you forgotten? I haven't forgotten anything, but that scumbag should have been punished, because he tried to rape me, and neighbors are neighbors. Who's without faults? Especially since we're friends, they even offered you their wives. Well, what if those filth from the caves get to us too? What are you trying to do, Comrade Zampolit? What are you trying to do, Comrade Zampolit? Again, to bring the eternal and reasonable to the immature minds of underdeveloped countries? Well, let French women tell them about the bright future, they'll be noble, but you just drive your tractor to explore, maybe you'll do something to help. We'll probably have to coo here until the second flood. It's always like this, lying on the stove, reflecting, and then bang, the second shift. Okay, honey, don't frown, I'll go and look at the problem in a couple of days, maybe it'll go away on its own. I remembered a joke again, a native is lying under a palm tree doing nothing. An American millionaire comes up to him and says, tear me a coconut from the palm tree, and I'll give you $1. Native, why do I need $1? American, why? Hire 2 more natives, pick 3 times as many coconuts and sell them. Then hire 2 more natives, pick more coconuts and sell them, and in 20 years you will be as rich as me, and you will be able to lie under a palm tree and do nothing, native, and I am lying down and doing nothing. Ha ha, ha ha. It'll be a story about me. As it turned out, events developed so rapidly that literally the next day the tractor driver had to drive his iron horse out to plow weeds. In the night the trooper woke up from someone's presence, or rather his neck was strangled by men's hands and someone was clearly sitting on his legs. Twisting sharply he broke both stumps and managed to shake off whoever was down below. Unable to see anything in the darkness, the guy couldn't make out the number of opponents or their weapons. Judging by their height and the way they navigated easily in the darkness, they were clearly not natives. More than a dozen hands tried to paw the young paratrooper warrior and they almost succeeded. But when he heard the thin squeals of his desperately resisting companions, the trooper turned on berserker mode. This simple, but very effective method of self-insertion was taught to him by Stepan Kukuruza, a petty officer of the unit. The same one who had smacked the sales clerk Ludotka, the deputy policeman's wife. The principle requires some preparation, but it is simple enough. It is enough to turn off his sense of tactile perception and pain and fear will recede. Then as a warrior berserker to use only the lowly natural instinct of self-preservation, which means to kill anyone without feeling pity and everything that comes. The man bit the neck of the first attacker, tearing out his ankles, feeling the tart, hot blood. The awakened savage began to literally rage. After scattering the three others holding his body, he began to deliver deadly blows in all directions. Considering that in the army he had to break bricks and even thin concrete blocks, one could imagine the sensations the invaders felt from such a furious surrender. Then he grabbed a tire iron and the wrecking of the enemy continued. His entire body was bruised and bitten, but the enemies who had survived had far fewer bones intact than broken ones. Having escaped from his shelter cave, Pashka only gritted his teeth annoyingly. His favorite women had been taken away after all. In the gloom of the moonlight, the whitish bodies of humanoid creatures with complete lack of vision, but sharp fangs and claws disappeared as if they had never existed, right before his eyes. These bitches, they stole the girls. Will my whole life consist of this kind of kidnapping? These homos are Homo sapiens. What? Their own females are not enough, they want other people's females. I can imagine what they will do with them, he muttered, and went to the neighboring village to the natives for help. Fortunately, the tribal chief, seeing the numerous beatings and bite marks, understood without words and only muttered sadly. Arostioaet, ornvig shosh. Zdilospraret, dilogtainagoat, morlocks. Which roughly meant the following: I warned you, but you didn't listen to me. You were dragging your feet, and now you've got it, the women have been kidnapped by the Morlocks. With the morning dawn, practically all the male population of the Aboriginal tribe, except for old men and children, moved out to the battle. Pashka had already started his powerful machine and even hooked up a bucket for ramming. Some of the archers sat on the roof and hood, the rest of the infantry, with spears and axes, followed the procession. Crawling over a river ford with heavy tracks, the tractor almost got stuck as it was attacked by a couple of very large alligators trying to bite off the tracks. But as a result, they lost their toothy jaws and became a pleasant bonus in the form of kebabs for the militant cannibals. Having made a preliminary reconnaissance, it was possible to find out that all the captives, and in the clutches of these half-humans there were 24 women, as it turned out later. Some of them were from their tribe and the neighboring ones nearby. All of them were in the farthest cave. By the way, they were told about it by the only native woman who had escaped from them a couple of days ago, as well as the fact that these creatures conduct incomprehensible sacrificial rituals. And if the females of these mutants were engaged in at least some, but primitive home deals and participated in the attack on settlements, the captives were used only as live incubators and they were well guarded. Having watched a little more and waited until most of these Morlocks fell asleep, and these animals slept only during the day, the tractor driver Pashka, as the only military man among the mobilized population, gave a command. Assault, guys. Fuck everyone you see. Take no prisoners. Don't hurt our wives. Just as soon as I hit the wall. Yexel, Yexel, Yexel. Toss in the drawbar. It's not known whether the Allies understood his bravado, but they clearly got the gist of it. The powerful Belarusian-made tractor did not fail. Literally with 2 or 3 mechanical thrusts it broke through the seemingly impregnable wall of the farthest corner of the cave labyrinth, with its bucket. When Samodruchko rushed inside, he turned off the tractor so as not to smear the slave girls on the walls and turned on the flashlights. Under the bright light, the liberators saw an unsightly picture of mutants scattering in panic and frightened, huddled in the walls. Dozens of arrows and spears flew in search of their target, and the trooper stroked his invariable sledgehammer almost affectionately, saying, "Well, my dear, shall we show these beasts where the crawfish are? You can't steal someone else's goods and offend women, you can always get back at them. Assholes. Dorsus, red-breasted leeches. I'll give you, there, here, back, and a couple more times." After that, he lit a torch and rushed into the thick of the whitish creatures. These strange creatures fought back hard, using their natural strength, flexibility, speed, and fury. But where could their sharp claws go against their primitive weapons? In an hour and a half all the walls, floor, and even the ceiling were red with their own and other people's blood, because the righteous anger of the warriors was too strong. Pashka was not very ceremonious either, smashing everything that came to hand with his shoe. He was the first to burst into the wide passage and in the torchlight saw his beloved women. The whole trio was hung on vines somewhere under the ceiling, and at the bottom there was a round stone with incomprehensible symbols and a hole filled with blood. It was clearly a place of sacrifice, and the primitive construction of the crucifixes was clearly reminiscent of an altar. "Dianka, Valayton, Armel, call me, girls. It's me, Pashka Samodruchko, your permanent savior, husband, and lover." The women did not give any signs of life and did not even seem to breathe. And the sound of dripping drops of water or blood was painfully drilling the brain. "Lord, save these women, please. Take my life if you want, for I truly love them all," shouted the time traveler at the top of his voice, echoing in the cave. But alas, there was no response, except for a faint moan from one of the captives, or maybe he just imagined it. Like the vague reflection of the long past in his brain. "Thank God my nephew is alive, and I was thinking of sending for a priest. You're lying there, not breathing. It's good that that girl came in a cab in time to help drag you to the infirmary. You'll get acquainted, I'll go and see what happened to the tractor, because the lightning struck it hard, only the charred cabin was left." A familiar voice of the former chairman Samodruchko Aristarch Ivanovich was heard. Then, when the guy opened his eyes, he was surprised to find himself lying in the local outpatient clinic, and next to him was a pretty girl with a very familiar face. "My name is Diana or Dinka, as you prefer," the stranger said in a pleasant velvet voice and carefully adjusted his pillow. "Look, please tell me what the hell happened to me. My head is all foggy, but I feel like I've known you for a long time," asked the tractor driver, blushing for some reason. "Your uncle explained to you that your tractor was struck by lightning and you were struck by the discharge, lucky it wasn't fatal. I brought him the documents from the city, he's a local oligarch, he's privatized almost all the land, you're an heir. So, what are you, a lawyer or a real estate consultant?" "No, not at all. I'm an English translator, I was just on my way. My mother and sister live in a neighboring village, and they also work as translators, only from French. My dad Alejandro was a real Frenchman, but he drowned at sea. You know, they even have corresponding names, Valayton and Armel, maybe you've heard of them?" After these words the girl went to the window and in the reflection of the glass, the guy clearly saw his vision, an unhappy prisoner, an island of cannibals, pirates, monsters, and his tractor breaking the ship to pieces. It was as if Pashka was switched and all those vague images that were swirling in his head formed into an intricate puzzle insight. Not only heard, but I feel that will even be related. "Diana, marry me, will you?" Then he clumsily fell to the floor and with difficulty got down on his knee and continued. "I ask for your hand and your heart. I promise to be a good husband and protector. Just don't disappear from my life anymore, okay? Yexel Moxel. Toss in the drawbar." Chapter 12. Ab altro expects, altri quod fecris. Expect from another what you yourself have done to another. Whoever tells you that a shell does not fall into the same funnel twice, spit in his face, it does, and it does. Not even a year after those amazing events with tractor driver Samodruchko, as he was again lucky or unlucky, depending on which side to look at. After the wedding, his wife Diana, as it should be, was already on maternity leave, a miser. Uncle Aristarch Ivanovich helped to repair the old parental house. It remained to save up for a nourishing life and a used car as suddenly from nowhere. In short, being in the field on his trusty iron horse tractor, he got into a strong thunderstorm and just thinking that he needed to get away from the open countryside, but alas it was too late, the tractor cab was struck by lightning. This exercise was a planned one and it seemed that nothing could affect its course of events. A group of assault troops was to capture an enemy facility and hold it until the main forces arrived. It seemed, what could be easier? After all, not the first and probably not the last was this task for Private Pashka Samodruchko, a Siberian paratrooper. As he himself said in the smoking room of the military unit that just before the draft, I even went with my grandfather to the bear with a slingshot. Judging by his good-natured smile, 2-meter height and pudgy fists, no one has yet risked to doubt his words. At first, there were some individuals in the training school who did not believe what he said. But after he bent an iron ruble with his fingers and hollowed it out with his teeth, they began to look at him with fear or respect. Not without curiosities, who served in the army will surely remember the notorious hazing in varying degrees of nastiness. So, there were several attempts to make Pashenka wash old servicemen's sweatbands and oh horror! To carry out the humiliating command to stand down and rise, to the point of insanity. Everything ended very unusually, despite the numerical advantage of the laughing grandfathers, who have quite good sports training and hand-to-hand combat skills. The paratroopers are no hoo-ha. Samodruchko in the first case wrapped a crowbar around the neck of the insolent Sergeant Ivanov, because he was just chiseling ice with it on the street. Well, and in the second case, instead of the command to stand down, he lifted a heavy mashka. For those who do not know I will explain, a piece of pipe welded to a piece of rail with a board, to which are screwed brushes for wiping floors in the barracks. So, taking this heavy cleaning tool, as if it were made of styrofoam, he said in a liver-livered voice. On the count of 3, all old men jump through the windows, the rest of the Salabans, stand down. Otherwise I'll put my ass on the end. Yexel, yexel, yexel. The drawbar in the drawbar. 1, 2, 3. What can I say? If there had been a camera and a smart director around, it would have turned out to be a blockbuster with comedy elements, as almost a dozen tall guys in paratroopers' stripes fell through the windows, some of them even with frames. Luckily it was the first floor, and there was a flower bed below, so it was only a few fractures and a dozen cuts. After this incident, the respect of his co-workers for the Siberian was added, as well as the indefatigable desire to make him all the same old robbers with a reputation tarnished in the literal sense. In character, the guy was very patient, a little verbal and very even kind. After all, he was the only one who managed to free Ivanov from the iron tie, and even bring cakes from the soldiers' cafeteria affected stuntmen. Those really took it quite ungratefully. If Ivanov just stammered and mumbled. Spar, 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 sigh, 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 bow. Bow. The old serviceman, seeing the giant, for some reason decided that he had come to finish them off, so they went to the windows of the infirmary again. Alas, unfortunately they were located on the second floor, and downstairs there was a service, Volga, of the deputy politician of the unit Pobrachenko. What can I say? There were more fractures, and we can't even talk about the increased level of combat and political training. A couple of people themselves wished to become political instructors, brainiacs with compulsory lowering, again, training in specialized schools. By the way, for civilians, I will read in clever words what the equipment of a paratrooper consists on. Many couch generals, brought up on the movie, in the zone of special importance, even have no idea what skill is necessary when landing and with what exactly they jump under the parachute. Therefore, in the voice of our infinitely beloved, in the depths of my soul, deputy politician Pobrachenko, I will explain. Clothing and equipment of airborne groups must meet the basic requirements. It must not only be comfortable, but also ensure the fulfillment of the assigned combat tasks. First of all, the outfit must do not constrain movements, provide life support, meet all the parameters of reliability. The paratrooper's equipment depends on the tasks that face him. Airborne troops are staffed with fighters of different orientation. Basically, in the airborne units are serving flamethrowers, snipers, machine gunners, and sappers. Depending on the military specialty, each fighter has his own combat equipment. A flamethrower has a light flamethrower in addition to the basic attributes of a paratrooper. Machine gunner does not do without a weapon that can provide a barrage of fire and stop the enemy. Sappers are equipped with new mine detectors, capable of detecting shells even behind a concrete wall. Backpack. An obligatory attribute of the airborne troops is his equipment. Backpack paratrooper Road 54 was specially designed for the airborne troops of the USSR Army. It was widely used during the Afghan War in 1979–89. This backpack was successfully used during the war in Chechnya and Ossetia, but even now it can be found in the troops. Is everything clear? Stay awake, oafs, the King of Heaven. Write everything down in your notes, I'll check. If I find the text of a letter to my favorite girls, I'll make you jump without a parachute. Learn the theory, which you'll definitely need in practice, assholes. Sukodruchko, stop it, Samodruchko. Stop snoring, your snoring is killing flies. Explain what a paratrooper's backpack consists of. Clapping half asleep eyes, Samodruchko raised up and looking at the stunted political officer, like an elephant on the moss, clearly said. The backpack is a multifunctional system with 3 compartments for various items. Backpack paratrooper Road 54 is worn on the shoulders as well as a regular tourist. On the chest there is a buckle in the form of a carabiner. There are 3 additional compartments, which are attached separately to the belt. One compartment is designed for a sapper shovel. In the shoulder area there is a compartment for a knife, and in the opposite side there is a place for 2 grenades. On the right side there is a pouch for 2 Kalashnikov magazines. The main compartment of the backpack closes with 2 buttons. Inside the backpack you can fit the army rations and necessary things. On the sides of the backpack there are buttoned compartments, where you can place a bottle or a military smoke bomb. Well done, fighter, I didn't expect such profound knowledge from you. Only the main thing to understand, the threat of Mars, that the bottle should be with water, not with vodka. Stop laughing like horses, fuck, memorize, and write down further. When landing personnel, each paratrooper must have a certain list of mandatory equipment. It includes the following items: the main and reserve parachute system assigned to the serviceman. If necessary, a safety device is issued. It is not required when performing landing from low altitudes. In winter conditions, overalls and a warm jacket are mandatory. The uniform must be well fitted so that there is no restriction of movements. Gloves or 3-fingered mittens are compulsory on the hands. On the head, in addition to the cap, should be a hard helmet and safety glasses. On the feet should be shoes well fitted to the size of the foot. What weapons and protection are required for a paratrooper private? Pashka, who had been standing on his feet all this time, was looking at his pudgy fist, thinking who he could launch it at, because of constant malnutrition and lack of sleep, and most importantly, because of the fuck-nire of his superior officers, rubbed his knuckles and replied dejectedly. The compulsory equipment, in addition to the satchel of a paratrooper, usually includes an AK-74M assault rifle. For snipers and machine gunners are used appropriate types of small arms and automatic weapons. The sappers are equipped with advanced mine detectors, capable of detecting mines at a great distance. Also included is a multifunctional knife designed to perform many tasks. The paratrooper knife included in this outfit is made of extra strong steel and can withstand a weight of up to 300 kilograms. The armored vest contains ceramic parts that provide reliable protection of different classes. The helmet is made of compressed fabric made of aramid fiber, which is included in this outfit. This helmet is much lighter than a metal helmet and can withstand up to 10 hits without penetration, providing reliable protection for the head of soldiers. The gloves are also fireproof and can withstand high temperatures of combustion. Holy shit! Smash, smash, smash. Toss in the drawbar. Good Samodruchko, I look at you, and all the time I think that you only eat with your head, but it turns out that you can also think. Sit down, and now we'll hand over notebooks, but not those with letters to your favorite ladies. Pashka sat down, immediately took out a picture of his favorite girl from his inner pocket and mentally kissed her. Every soldier's dream is to survive until demobilization and come home a hero. But God be with them, political studies. Now we will not talk about our grey everyday life, but about how this character was preparing to jump from the cargo hatch of a transport plane, unsuspectingly. At that moment the sky was attracted by clouds and lightning flashed, the plane shook violently. Yes, so much so that Pashka hit the back of his head on the doorway and fell out into the dark gloom in semi-consciousness. Right above him flashed the silhouette of a T-84 tank, obviously a prototype. For the information of housewives and those who have a white ticket, it is an armored thing that looks like a caterpillar tractor with a muzzle, well armed and armored. In more detail, it's like this. T-84U, Oplet, object for 78DU9. The tank has a new welded and rolled turret with a one-piece stamped roof made of electroslag remelting, due to which it has higher strength and survivability. Given the simpler shape of the turret, it was possible to successfully place multi-layer armor in it. Its internal volume was also increased. In the frontal projection of the turret was placed a new dynamic defense of the third generation, NOJ. Combat weight is 50 tons. Travel speed is 65 to 75 km per hour, crew of 3 people. Operating temperature range from -20 to +50 degrees Celsius. Even water obstacles can overcome up to 5 meters depending on the level of training. Armament: 125mm smoothbore gun 2A46M1, with stabilizer 2 × 10 to the power of 42, ammunition, total, 43 shells. 7.62mm twin PKT machine gun, ammunition, 1250 rounds. Anti-aircraft installation PZU-7, 12.7mm machine gun NSVT ammunition, 450, 3 ribbons of 150 rounds. Remote control. Vertical stabilization. Observation devices. Night sight, thermal imager. Commanders, day or night, TKN, 4S AGAT. Power reserve. On roads 540 kilometers. On terrain 450 kilometers. This isn't bullshit. That's what's good about military equipment and property. It is simple in operation and often works without fail, so in this case, the parachute opened automatically, taking the unconscious body of the paratrooper in an unknown direction. But 50 tons of armored iron landed quite successfully, on a small crypt, pressing it with its weight to the very foundation. The burial structure was surrounded on all sides by clawed, shell-shaped creatures. The unknown monsters tried to shred this marvel of technology into shreds, but only scratched the paint, which made them go on a real rampage. Chapter 13. Amicus certus in reinsert cernta. A true friend is recognized in a wrong deed. I.e., a true friend is recognized in trouble. Pashka woke up from a strong blow on his feet. He knocked down with his size 45 boots an incomprehensible flying Krakoziaba, studded with thorns like a sea urchin. With astonishment looking around, he did not understand what was happening to him. Yes, he was still flying on a parachute in full combat ammunition, in the area of the proposed landing, but the passing underfoot view seemed to be some kind of evil joke or mind-boggling scenery of some fantasy movie. Real black dragons flew by, spitting fire in all directions, and they were pounced upon by fierce gargoyles, beasts that looked like half man and half bat. They tore off whole chunks of the poor beast's flesh and cackled like demons from the infernal underworld. Sweet, sweet, where's Greenpeace looking? Sweet, sweet, where's Greenpeace looking? Moxel, Moxel, Moxel. A drawbar in a drawbar. The guy crossed himself in his soul, even though he was a convinced atheist. Down below the picture was no lovelier than it was mind-boggling. His parachute was flying in the direction of a majestic castle of pearly red marble with numerous towers. Here and there from them purple balls flew out, which exploded when they found a target. It was the targets that brought the Siberian to a complete stupor. Hordes of dwarf goblins in battle clothes and with swords, like a dark grey haze, filled the entire plain. They were ruled by a dozen terrifying-looking demons, burning with fire and waving sharp bloody scythes. Several magical nuclei struck the chest of the nearest one, and he screamed so loudly that even the trees growing around him shook. In his chest shone through holes, and the son of darkness fell to the ground. But on these terrible wounds began to crawl some demons the size of a large rat, and literally dissolved into the wounded body, gradually healing it. When this seemingly unkillable creature began to rise to its feet, a bipedal centaur literally appeared out of nowhere and literally pinned the enemy to the ground with its long silver horns. Behind him, hundreds of fighting dwarfs with heavy hammers and shields appeared out of thin air. They skillfully began to push the goblin army away from the castle. But then the dark forces intervened again. A cloud of huge bees descended from the sky. In addition to their size, they were also distinguished by their strong, massive wolf-like jaws and a long sting constantly popping out of their abdomen, which literally pierced through both shields and the stunted bodies of the defenders. The white dome with the paratrooper was inexorably carried closer and closer to the castle, and he finally got a better look at the defenders. Among them there were people with hypertrophied big muscles, mags in ridiculous robes, and even long-eared elves, releasing myriads of arrows in the direction of the enemy. What the trooper didn't know for sure was that a few kilometers away from this massacre, on the other side of the defending fortress, a troop of his battle brothers had landed. Unfortunately, the tanks, infantry, fighting vehicles, and almost all the personnel immediately fell into a real meat grinder, not having time to fully deploy the battle orders. All the same unknown creatures with a frenzy of slicing everything under their claws. The Sky Warriors are a very unimpressive cast of people and will never turn the other cheek. Massive fire from cannons, machine guns DSHB, paratrooper assault battalion, literally swept away the first wave of attackers with a tornado of fire, turning literally into ashes all those evil that wanted to drown them in their own blood. Training, cohesion, iron discipline, excellent weaponry managed to push back the hordes of goblins, demons, and a squadron of gargoyles behind the nearest hill, and all who survived began to entrench themselves. Human strength is not limitless. Only a few hours of adrenaline released by the body helped to overcome fatigue and dulled the feeling of pain from wounds, but after, Vital needed rest and the use of special tonic special means. On a huge territory were lying pieces of human bodies mixed with the remains of monsters. Several tanks had their turrets torn off, and the survivors claimed that such monstrous power was possessed by something resembling a giant whale, but with rat-like legs and jaws like a shark, Helicaprion. More than 5 APCs, infantry fighting vehicles, were turned upside down by snail-like creatures with jellyfish-like tentacles. Now all that was left of them were pathetic shards of meat, slime, and blood. It seemed that victory was near. The enemy would not be able to re from the shock and power of firearms. But then the unexpected happened. Myriads of small toothy millipedes, arthropods, with durable exoskeletons began to crawl out of the ground and literally in a matter of hours destroyed all life. Their small size allowed them to crawl into any crevice of even heavy equipment and gnawed into flesh unprotected by armor. Pashka Samodruchko didn't see all this. Perhaps it was for the best. He had enough problems of his own. From the side of the impregnable fortress, a large detachment of some creatures, resembling shabby monkeys, but with massive retractable jaws full of sharp clicks and saber-like claws on their hands and feet, rushed across the drawbridge on chains. Surprisingly, they wore no special protection other than leather cloaks, and probably didn't need it, because when they crashed into the horde of goblins tearing them apart, the trooper noticed that all the wounds on them instantly healed, as well as severed limbs, which grew back right before his eyes. Death could come only after the severed head, so great was the regeneration. It, by the way, was inherent in some subspecies of attackers. Oh, 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 oh. You're dead on your feet. Did someone slip some hallucinogens into my compote? I'm going back to the barracks. I'll have my eye on my ass if I find out who did this. He shouted downward, figuring out where he would land with the least traumas, injuries, of course. Soon, Paul's eyes widened in disgust as half-turtle-like creatures with numerous outgrowths and jaws emerged from the ground near the nearest tower. They were clearly blind, but at the same time they could easily recognize the enemy and immediately clawed at the legs of the nearest ones. Their shells were very strong, and in case of danger the mutants were immediately drawn into themselves almost entirely, a very successful way of defense, as it turned out. But further from the dug holes began to get out of the really spawns of universal evil. They were real freaks, humanoid completely naked bodies, both male and female, with severed or torn off heads. They were grown right into their chests in some incomprehensible way or spell. Only much later did the fallen man learn that these were ordinary people, mostly dead warriors, like zombies doing the bidding of the black mags. Often for fun, a man's head was implanted into a woman's body and vice versa. A peculiar sense of humor, isn't it? Holy shit! Moxel to moxel. Smash, smash, smash. Toss in the drawbar. I'll show you how to disrespect the paratroopers. The glorious paratrooper screamed in pain as he clearly felt pain in his ankle, which was clearly trying to tear off some semicircular thing with retractable clicks all in spikes, and outgrowths at the ends of which the only eye winked maliciously. This bastard outwardly resembled the head from the horror movie Aliens, but much nastier, and judging by the way something moved clearly felt that the inside was filled with air. "I'll fix you now," he muttered, pulling out a long paratrooper's knife and slashing it at the aggressor's face. The sharpened steel did not fail, a part of the body clapped loudly like a clapper and flew down, but the jaw with teeth remained stuck in the boot. The paratrooper did not dare to tear it off. First of all, he physically could not bend over, and secondly. Chapter 14. Sibi, potus, somni, Venus omnia moderta sint. Food, drink, sleep, love, let everything be moderate. Second, he recognized in the ruins of an obscure but clearly ecclesiastical structure the white shreds of parachutes, and the vile creatures swarming in them. But the main thing was not that, but the fact that in the torn slings he could clearly see a real battle tank. Several times he had to practice the skills of landing on such an iron horse and even threw in him training grenades. When he passed right overhead, some Salabans even siphoned from the excess of feelings. Imagine yourself, you are in a tiny trench, and you are being run over by such a screeching hulk. Here anyone can get his pants dirty with content, so a real paratrooper should first throw an anti-tank grenade under the turret, and then. These adrenaline memories reminded him that he wanted PP and he would not hesitate to pull out his miracle giant, sprinkling the entire battlefield, but he did not have time. An unforeseen airflow turned the dome with a sharp roll to the left and the guy at full speed, like a torpedoing bomber, began to dive directly into the central tower of the castle fortifications. The speed of both magic nukes and ordinary arrows increased, and the fact that he wasn't hit could only be explained by a miracle or providence. This time he was lucky again, for instead of being smeared on the wall with bloody mush, the paratrooper flew onto the balcony terrace of the building and dashingly knocked down more than a dozen armed men like skittles. Strike! Excel Moxel! That's lucky, that's lucky! The drawbar in the drawbar! Joyfully pronounced Samodruchko, trying to get out from under the silk fabric and slings piled on his head. Nobody bothered to hold his sincere joy. Moreover, when he finally cut the cloth with a knife and came out, he was hit on the head with a sledgehammer, or rather a war hammer, of a huge stunted warrior, and if not for the strength of the helmet, our story would have ended there. But Kevlar steel saved Pavel from death, although he still lost consciousness. The forces of darkness were advancing, armadas of orcs, trolls, and goblins breaking through the ranks of Castle Atrew's defenders like black rocks in a sea wave. Unseen mechanisms buzzed loudly, spitting invisible arrows, piercing through the fighting dragons, though their armor could withstand any blade of the local lands. At the cost of his life, one of them clung dead center to his enemy and lunged downward, dragging them both to certain doom. A succession of spells came, deadly lightning bolts flew from each side and protective circles of energy fields emerged. The forces seemed to be equal, but not until the gargoyles appeared. Their heart-rending screams were maddening, and their sharp fangs and claws tore any warrior defender in half. "Everybody, go behind the protective barrier, we will hold them off, save yourselves." shouted King Claudius, surrounded by the best men of his guard. This battle would be legendary, if any of the witnesses who had seen it survived. The travel portal opened for only a few minutes. The same ones that had helped save 50 elves, 30 or so dwarfs, a dozen hobbits, and only a couple of wizards from certain death. Some of them sat on an even more unseen beast spewing flames from a chimney. After the unprecedented force of the explosion, only smoking heads and bloody chunks of unidentifiable things were left at the site of the hit. As if the 4 earth elements, in the likeness of a bear, eagle, wolf, and snake, had disintegrated into black rags and disappeared without a trace. The process of moving was chaotic, because to comply with all the spells in accuracy did not work, so the ejection of almost 100 surviving characters occurred not in the neighboring kingdom of allies, but in the uncharted territory between the world. What the hell am I dreaming about lately, not to see a naked woman, a pot of dumplings or a bucket of uncle's mead? Army is obviously not my thing. I want to go home, to my native birches, golden bread, to my tractor, muttered Samodruchko, wiping his eyes and then looking around frightened. Instead of so unloved barracks, he found himself locked in an ancient dungeon. Of all the furniture on the floor was only straw and a wooden bucket in the corner for a place of a latrine. The paratrooper himself was not only unarmed, but also completely naked. He had to himself with some rag of unknown origin tied around his thighs and finally had to take a dump. Hey, handsome, is everyone in the Betwee world so rude as to rub their privates in my face? Although to tell you the truth, I never even dreamed of such a childbirth. What do you feed him? From these words all the hairs on the man's body stood up, as well as the very organ that was advertised. Then the amazed look of the paratrooper saw how what he took for a flap of cloth soared into the air and took the shape of a miniature girl. That's it, I'm brain dead and it's all glitches. He mumbled childishly and ate his shame with his hands, just in case. Don't worry, kid, I'm not a ghost, I'm not even white hot. My name is Blagoslava, which means, glorifying kindness. Your name is Pavel Samodruchko, don't be afraid, you are not in the other world, or rather not where devils, tar, and devils' frying pans are. You are now in the Castle A True, on the planet Earth, the reign of King Claudius, only in a different space-time reality. The world is a little different than you were taught in school. Got it? Fucking hell, I've got a pole in my ankle. You've got a pole in my ankle. Who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing here? If I'm missing from the unit by tonight, I'll either be declared dead or a deserter. With my record, I'll be discharged. Calm down, servant, believe me, these are the most minor problems you can have. I will not discuss in detail, anyway you will not understand, but remember the main thing. If Jiravit will seize this castle and use the secret library, then your world is farther to perdition. We are all connected by the finest threads of the universe, but there are always forces that want to upset this balance, seeking unlimited power and universal enslavement. Wait, my head is going to crack, let me sleep and wake up at home, or at least in the barracks. What a fool, why didn't you read any books as a child, about Baba Yaga or Koshchei the Immortal? Do you like fantasy? Well, let's say I read it, or rather my grandmother told it, but what's that got to do with it? It's very simple, there is no smoke without fire. Most of the inventions are taken from life only in different times and different interpretations. My God, how many obscure words are hidden in your head, half of them you probably don't understand yourself. So what are you doing in my head, you little punk? What do you want to hide, you fool? What do you want to hide? How you used to chase a bald man in your youth or watch girls in the bathhouse. They're talking about the end of the world, but he's talking about little things. I explain for those who are in the tank, worlds are collapsing. Your task is to survive and if possible to prevent the evil forces to get to the secret knowledge. Explain how again. What's this got to do with me? I'm getting sick of sci-fi, why don't you take someone else? Pashka, in your forehead. You're here and now, and it's not for nothing. I can't explain, but your intervention has completely disrupted all the plans of the sorcerer Jiravit. You have no idea how disgusting he is, looking like a jellyfish with a human head, teeth all over his body and outgrowths of meat-opening claws. Brrr. Nightmare. The horror. I saw it several times in the Ball of Omniscience, especially as he eats human meat, then could not sleep for weeks without herbal infusions. Wait, so I'm not the only one here, my co-workers got here too? I don't know about the guys, but what in your empty head is listed as a tank has clearly moved. And quite fortunately for me, you see, I'm the chief magician of this place and the protector of the knowledge of destruction. It's funny, really, you're the size of a cat. Just like in the joke, do you know the Pacific Ocean? Yes. I've calmed you down. Don't worry, I'm an earthly woman. I mean a girl, it's just that dark forces stole me last night, obviously at someone's behest. Then my soul was taken out, my body was frozen, to hell with you. So there's a traitor in King Clawsweed's inner circle. Only I know the secret spells that guard the library's secret entrances, and without them, no one can get there alive. So you're a soul or something, why can I see you? You're invisible, sort of. I am a specialist in living matter, not in dead forms, but I know one thing for sure, when the black sorcerers almost finished the ritual, they put the soul from the body into a flask. Brrr, you say it so calmly, as if you were talking about a tooth pulled out. I was drugged and then dragged through secret corridors to the tomb of an ancient witch. Only in that place such a thing is possible, and here you and your iron horse fell on my head. Ha ha ha, smeared every single witch on the floor, along with their containers. Then, when I took off, I saw your parachute, and I realized where I was going to be rescued from and ran after you. But you landed very badly, right into the arms of the king and his cronies. They were watching the battle from that tower. Lucky you didn't get killed. You're lucky you didn't get killed. Hey, Blagoslava, your body must have been damaged too, right? No, don't worry. Don't worry, it's at the very depths, next to the relics of that ancient old woman. The freezing ritual was very competent, but I'll find a way to bring myself back. But not now, no one can see or hear me but you. No matter what you say, they will not believe you, but will kill you at once. I can only give advice and that's all. Will they torture me if I'm in jail? They will, but don't be afraid, we have spellcasters that recognize lies, so tell it like it is. Say you came from between the worlds. You don't know how, tell them about the tank, like a ram is demonic, but don't tell them about me. You don't know who the traitor is. It is necessary to identify him first, and then. Remember one more thing, be sure to make friends with Milorad. If he lives you will be a good protector, despite his name. Sweet and joyful, will tear anyone apart, whom he considers an enemy. I don't get it, is he your lover or your relative? Why didn't he protect you then? Everything in its own time, you'll understand everything, if you don't die foolishly or if you don't do something stupid. Chapter 15. Cujus vis homines ist nullus, sine incipientis, in ire persevere. It is inherent in every man to err, but it is inherent in no one but a fool to persist in error. Like the glitter of my soul is the shine of my blade, it is indispensable in battle, it is the joy of the brave. Like the streams of water in the flames of fire, its tides are bright, and like the carvings of ancient talismans, its veins are fine. And if you wish to recognize its true color, the wave of its shimmering tides will deceive your eyes as if laughing back. It is thin and long, graceful and austere, it is the pride of my eyes, it glows with rainbow light, it glistens, flowing like a stream. In water its edges hardened and became diamond hard, but steadfast was the middle of the sword, refrained from water. The belt that had worn it since that time was frayed, it was time to repair it, but the ancient blade managed to keep its youth in the battles. It cuts so fast that it cannot tarnish its hardened smoothness, nor can it tarnish the honor of the one who would bear it. My fierce gleam, when you shine, is my deeds, my joyous ringing, when you ring, is my praise. Living, I crush living bodies, steel, you crush metal, and so against your kin each of us has risen. The old swordsman considers 5 daily prayers superfluous, he's ready to shed blood even in the temple, he longs for great battles. In the midst of battle, with this sword he'll slay the lions of the enemy. It's not the sword that will bounce off their armor, it's the lions themselves. The lightning in my hand will make the sky forget the lightning in my hand, and the long blood-soaked land will not need rain. Hearing the trooper through the dusty, foul-smelling sack worn over his head, his hands were tied as well, just in case. A second, creaky voice of another stranger answered. Only the great sage and warrior Abu Titab Abu Salim al-Mutanabi, my lord, could have said so. Would you care to question the enemy spy who has fallen on our heads? Our oracles have scanned his brain, but there's nothing useful there except drinking, naked women and some unknown mechanism in the field. It must be the powerful magical protection of the sorcerer Jiravit, O Radiant One. When the sack was removed, he only had time to take a deep breath and then gasped in pain as a tall guard in a bloody apron kicked him in the ribs. Then, gasping with pain, the trooper heard the same nasty voice again. Tell me, scoundrel, for what purpose did you enter the castle? The shouldermaster has already built a fire. In a couple of minutes we'll roast your heels, and then we'll boil your priapus and your eggs in boiling water. With a mad gleam in his eyes whispered in the right ear of the prisoner a bald dwarf in monk's robes. Who the hell are you, asshole? Why don't you introduce yourself? Don't you recognize my name? Why do you fossils have such a miserable habit, to punch you in the face or to use torture? Have you heard of the Geneva Convention or the Hague Court? Samodruchko answered bitterly, being firmly tied to a wooden crucifix. Surprisingly, he did not offer any resistance, although he could quite cope with 5 burly guards dressed in leather cloaks, like the Iron Felix's handmaidens. Only instead of Mausers and leather caps, they had shiny sharpened rings like Nibelungs on their belts, and metal helmets on their heads, something like motorcycle helmets with horns. It might be scary in some places, but mostly it looked ridiculous. Judging by your clothes and the way you look, you must be local oligarchs and bloodsuckers, eating at the drop of a hat, while the people are starving and eating their food. We have the same problem in the interworld. It's not that the poor can't be fed. It's that the rich can't get drunk. The trooper continued his fiery speech, thinking who would be the first to get killed if he could break the ropes on his hands. I am the chief advisor on magic of King Klaus Vidius, Great Libyan. You are probably a sneaky lurker of the vile sorcerer Jiravit. Grunted, like an old floor, a gaunt, low-grown man, and bowed almost to the floor added. O sun-like ruler of all the earth's territories, the moon and all the stars in the sky, may I finally torture this insolent man. The man standing next to him, who had a sturdy build and a goatee, only smirked and wrinkled his nose and said, Calm down, you old snuffbox. You only want to torture and torment. How did my late father put up with you? You can see by your language, habits and equipment that he is a foreigner and not from here. We've had it before, different creatures and unprecedented mechanisms. When I was a child, you read me the Treatise of the Troubled Times in the Age of Dawn. Have you forgotten, old man? After that, the royal person came to the table and took a glass of wine and drained it to the bottom, and then a voice sounded. Tell me, servant, where did you come from and how can you help us? You've seen what's going on outside the walls. We've been fighting off the dark forces for 3 days now. Unfortunately, our greatest magic Blagoslava was lost in the battle, or rather before the attack the spies stole it. Samodruchko only sighed heavily, nodding at my bound limbs, and when I was finally released, he began to tell me about the latest events in his life, missing the meeting with his invisible assistant. She whispered in his ear. Don't talk about me in front of Libyan, he has changed a lot lately, and unfortunately, not for the better. I had to agree, and having drunk the offered drink, the guy tried to explain literally on fingers to the local Tsaradvorets about the place where he came from, about customs, manners, culture, architecture and even military equipment. He was simply stunned and listened without interrupting. Only once he sighed heavily and quietly said, It would be now Blagoslava's skill to apply, because by your memory she would be able to recreate the drawings, and give our craftsmen. In no time we would have destroyed Jiravit with all his dark army. It even seemed to the former tractor driver that a tear glistened in the corner of his eye, and then, as if in reality, the picture of the king and the magician copulating on the royal throne, near the statue of Apollo holding the globe, arose in his head with such passion that it seemed that the oak legs would break. Oh, I'm so ashamed, I'm sorry, Pashenka, it's my memory in your mind. Don't you dare say a word to someone, you'll get your head knocked off your shoulders. It's not right for a commoner, even with the abilities of a magician, to be related to royal blood. Oh ho 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 ho, why did I have to suffer such a fate? Sounded again in his ear, and in his groin there was such a heat that it could be extinguished with water. For more than 3 hours the prisoner told and told. In the interval he was even fed and given a drink of very tasty mead, which made his tongue lisp. All right, Pavel, go to rest, and in the morning you and I will continue our conversation. A room has been prepared for you right below my chambers, and all your clothes and weapons will be returned to you. Our oracles have just tested you in the refraction ball and have convinced me that you spoke the truth and have no evil intent. I look forward to your help in our war, in any capacity, whether as an advisor or as a warrior. As soon as the alien in space took a warm bath, or rather a wooden tub with hot water, and laid down on a huge bed, he immediately fell asleep as a baby. The most surprising thing was that all night he dreamed of naked Blagoslava, but this time it was not him who indulged in lovemaking, but in some gloomy cave, illuminated only by torches on the walls. Samodruchko woke up from a pronounced feeling of anxiety and screaming in his head. Pashka, wake up, dummy! You are about to be killed. You have to run away. King Clausvidius has been betrayed and murdered. The sorcerer Girovit is already at the gates of the secret library. Our worlds are doomed, doom is inevitable. Despite a slight hangover, the fighter in a couple of minutes dressed in his clothes, put on an armored vest, helmet and goggles, and even pulled the bolt on his automatic rifle. As it turned out, he did all this in a very timely manner, because just a moment later the seemingly very strong door shattered as if it had been shot from a grenade launcher. The blast waved through Pashka behind the overturned table and even slightly contused him, but he quickly oriented himself and took a convenient position for shooting. As soon as he saw the black silhouettes of the enemies, he immediately pulled the trigger. Pashka loved and knew how to shoot. Changing horns after horns, he mowed down more than 3 dozen humanoid creatures with huge fangs and creepy faces, something reminiscent of orcs from fairy tales. It was necessary to break out of this stone bag, and the first thing the paratrooper did was to throw a smoke bomb and 3 grenades into the corridor in turn. The eerie echo of the third explosion was still echoing as the warrior jumped out of the room, sparingly shooting everything that came under his hand, and realizing that the ammunition was not infinite. When it did run out, they used the butt of an automatic rifle, and then a paratrooper's knife. At the end of the corridor, Pashka saw the mage Labian laughing, spinning a bright red fireball in his palms. That's who the traitor is, die, bitch. Yexel, Yexel, Yexel. The drawbar in the drawbar. The guy shouted and threw a knife towards the enemy, watching it enter his right eye socket almost to the hilt. At the same time he saw a flaming, magical projectile flying towards him. A red cat rushed towards him out of nowhere and took the blow, scattering into small frosty snowflakes. It was my protector Milorad who saved you, you won't have another chance, run, I feel the powerful force of dark magic. Again he heard the familiar voice and Blagoslava's sobbing. Then the dead body of the mage convulsively twitched, shuddered and began to transform into something disgusting resembling a jellyfish with a human head, teeth all over its body and outgrowths with claws. It was Girovit, spitting an icy stream in his direction. In order to save himself, the trooper did a somersault forward, as he had been taught, and threw himself into the open window of the castle, not even thinking at what height he was. He landed luckily for himself and unluckily for his enemies. A dozen of some furry ghouls stood right under the ledge, and he literally broke the backs of half of them with his weight. Fists, elbows, and forged boots came next. He knew how to fight well too, from fist fights in their village to practicing hand-to-hand combat in competitions. In the course of the fight, his armor, helmet, and even his shoes were stolen. But still, the fugitive managed to break free and make a run for it. Numerical advantage as it is, against a crowbar there is no reception if there is no other crowbar. By the way, the crowbar was not far away, winding like a hair between the narrow streets of ancient buildings. The guy literally bumped his forehead into the tank. Yes, exactly in the tank, the one that buried alive evil sorcerers and released from captivity soul Blagoslava. Exel Moxel. The drawbar in the drawbar. My dear, how I missed you. shouted the paratrooper and quickly opened the hatch and dived inside. As soon as the heavy lid slammed shut behind him, the guy felt a small tremor throughout the body, as if someone scattered metal balls on it. "Well, you nasty things, shall we fight? I'll show you how to love your country." Despite the fact that the heavy machine was lying almost on the side of the ruins of the ancient crypt, the former tractor driver managed not only to start it, but also to level it, and then, as they say, the battle will show. Heading back to the castle, Samodruchko pursued only one goal: to destroy the dark evil, or rather the main leader, Jirovit. "Pashka, you can't go back, we'll all die!" screamed literally in his head magician, and then again acquired the features of a miniature girl in the form of Mauve, muttering again and again. "You will ruin us, ruin us, ruin us. Don't drift, my friend, we'll get through. The landing party is not retreating, and I have nowhere to retreat to. Until I destroy this bastard and avenge Clavidius, I won't rest." All the way to the goal there were some horrible-looking creatures, trying to claw at the armor with everything they could, but they only broke the ichla, horns and claws, gnashing with anger. More often they died under massive tracks, cartridges, shells fighters spared until a special occasion, and here it came. When the rumbling hulk drove into the central square surrounded on all sides by statues of ancient knights, the first thing that caught his eye was the giant figure of Jirovit. He seemed to have increased in size 10 times. The first thing that caught his eye was the gigantic figure of Jirovit, who seemed to have increased in size 10 times over. "All Pashulia, our worlds will soon be destroyed. This son of darkness has infiltrated the secret library. Will now open a portal to your world, and myriads of ruthless killers will begin their bloody feast. Don't be in a hurry to bury us, friend Esselmoxel. The first torpedo is coming." Then the paratrooper took aim and began to methodically bombard this moving mountain. Both armor-piercing shells and shrapnel shells were used, and when they ran out, large-caliber machine guns and anti-aircraft guns started to work. Literally in front of their eyes, Jirovit began to fall apart and splinter into bloody pieces all around the perimeter. To consolidate the success, Samodruchko directed his armored car in the thick belly of this monster, staying it through. "Pashenka, you lost him, I can't believe it, I've become the same." A voice sounded somewhere near his groin, and when the tired, soot-soaked and sweat-wet paratrooper lowered his eyes, he saw a girl of unprecedented beauty, something reminiscent of his wife Diana. She was completely naked and also ed in soot. "That's it. You are literally drawn to the most intimate Boguslavushka. Take into account that I have a woman for a year as was not. Here I will not hold back an abuse, beautiful." Embarrassed, said the guy, and threw his overalls over the girl's shoulders. "You saved not only me, but also our 2 worlds, because all the power and all the knowledge of black magic was with this sorcerer. So ask for any reward, but I know very well what you want, so have it your way." She whispered all this, arching her back languidly and sitting on his lap. Then she gave him a sweet kiss on the lips, and her hands made some manipulations with his pants. Finally, the guy clearly felt how their bodies reunited, bringing sweet sensations and out-of-this-world passion. Pashka Samodruchko screamed with pleasure, sinking into a dream reminiscent of death. "Are you kidding me, dear nephew? Holy shit! It's the second time you've been struck by lightning and you're transferring technology to me. It's good that Dinka, as if she sensed something, came running to me in the rain, and we rushed here and took you to the hospital. You've been unconscious for a week. All the time you were yelling about Blagoslava and Clausewitty. Were you dreaming about pornography, or were you at an orgy, you shameless bastard? Why are you turning your face away?" "I'm sorry, uncle, I dreamt about the army. I landed in some, Benya not from here, and then it was like it was cut off. I don't remember anything, Yexel-Moxel. The drawstring. Tell me, where is my beloved wife?" Where? "In Karaganda. Take her to the maternity hospital. She had a premature birth, she was too nervous, but don't worry, everything went well. Congratulations, Pavel, you are now not only a tractor driver and a former paratrooper, but also a father. You have a son, congratulations." "Thank you. That's the best gift for a man. What's that ginger cat on the windowsill, uncle?" You're supposed to be a dog person. So it's another addition to your family, a cat from under the tractor, smoking. Dina named him Milorad. Isn't that a funny name? Why are you pale? Maybe some water? Better vodka, with a good appetizer. Ducent valentum fata, nolentum trahunt. The fate leads him who wants to go, and drags him who does not want to go.